A poor girl threw herself into danger to save a millionaire from a brutal accident. What no one knew is that she became the secret love he could never forget. But before we dive into the full story, let me know where you're watching from and what time it is. Now, subscribe to the channel and let's get started. On a warm late summer afternoon, a young woman named Mia hurried across the bustling city street, clutching a small bag of groceries. At 25 years old, Mia carried a quiet strength in her posture, though her worn shoes and simple attire hinted at the financial hardships she faced daily. She worked as a part-time nurse in a public clinic that struggled with funding, a place where she spent her days caring for those who could least afford proper medical attention. Growing up in a rural township, Mia had learned from a young age the value of compassion and service. Her parents, farm laborers, had taught her that giving to others was a blessing despite their own limited means. Through scholarships and relentless determination, Mia managed to pursue a course in nursing, hoping one day to open a small home care service for the elderly in her neighborhood. Yet for now, she barely earned enough to cover her modest rent and support her aging mother back home. Her days were long, her nights short, and her soul weary from life's demands. Still, she maintained a gentle smile for everyone she encountered. That afternoon, the traffic lights at the intersection malfunctioned, flickering erratically between green and red. Mia took notice of the confusion, but, exhausted from her hospital shift, she pressed on across the street, focused on getting home quickly to tend to her mother's medicine schedule. She was halfway across the intersection when she caught a glimpse of a sleek black sports car coming from her left at an alarmingly fast speed. Horns blared, tires screeched, and then, in a flash, she realized someone was about to be hit. Across from her stood Andrew Langford, a 34-year-old CEO whose name commanded both envy and awe in the corporate world. Tall, impeccably dressed, and undeniably handsome, Andrew had just finished a negotiation meeting that threatened to reshape the future of his sprawling financial empire. His thoughts were miles away, on shareholders, on mergers, on how his entire company's image depended on his next move. Distracted and absorbed by the demands of success, Andrew barely registered the malfunctioning lights. He stepped into the crosswalk, phone in hand, texting his assistant about the latest contract. In a heartbeat, he was directly in the path of the oncoming car. Mia's instincts as a nurse, and as a caring human being, kicked in. Without a second thought, she dropped her groceries, sprinted forward, and threw herself at Andrew, pushing him sideways out of the car's path. The speeding vehicle missed him by inches, the side mirror grazing Mia's shoulder as it roared past. Together they tumbled onto the asphalt. Passers-by gasped and shouted, converging in alarm. Andrew, winded and stunned, stared into the face of the stranger who had just saved his life. A light trickle of blood ran down Mia's arm, and her hair fell over her eyes in disarray. Ignoring her own pain, she quickly checked his vital signs: heart rate, breathing. It took him a moment to catch up with reality. "Are you okay?" Her voice was gentle but urgent. Andrew blinked in shock. He had nearly died mere seconds ago. I think so," he managed, feeling his heart pounding in his chest. Mia, relieved that he was speaking, nodded. She tried to get up, but her shoulder throbbed painfully where the car's mirror had struck her. A small crowd formed around them. Some offered to call an ambulance. Others criticized the reckless driver who'd already disappeared down the road. In the middle of the commotion, Mia and Andrew were like two people momentarily cut off from the rest of the world. Despite the sting in her shoulder, Mia introduced herself with a polite smile, an almost apologetic grin, as if she were sorry for causing a scene. "I'm Mia. I saw the car wasn't slowing down." Andrew looked at her more carefully now. Her features were soft, gentle eyes, kind expression. She wore no designer clothing, no expensive jewelry, just a cheap watch. Yet she radiated warmth and earnestness. Andrew realized as he stood up with her assistants that this woman, this complete stranger, had risked her life for him. He was speechless for a moment. When the ambulance arrived, Mia insisted it first check Andrew, urging the medics to ensure that the wealthy stranger was unhurt. Only once they confirmed he had only minor scrapes did she allow them to treat her own bruised shoulder. Even then, she refused the suggestion to go to the hospital for further tests, citing her shift the next morning and her limited resources. Andrew watched in disbelief. Most people in her situation would have demanded compensation, or at least seized the moment to connect with him for personal gain. But Mia simply thanked the paramedics, then turned to Andrew. "Take care, sir. Please be more careful crossing streets, especially around here. People drive too fast." Her voice was both respectful and sincere. She started to walk away, clearly in pain. Andrew's mind spun with conflicting thoughts. He knew she was injured, could see the tension in her features every time she took a step. He wanted to help, to thank her in some meaningful way, but he struggled to find the right words. All his life, he had lived in a bubble of corporate dealings and carefully orchestrated social relationships. Genuine gratitude like this, owing his very life to a stranger, felt both overwhelming and humbling. "Wait," he called after her. I want to thank you properly. Let me take you to a hospital, or at least let me pay for—" She turned around, tired yet still smiling. "Really, there's no need. You look fine. I'm all right too. I promise." He wasn't convinced. "At least allow me to get you a cab," Andrew insisted, noticing she was about to walk to a nearby bus stop. But Mia, mindful of her meager finances, shook her head. "I already have my bus pass." She paused, looking slightly embarrassed. "I appreciate the offer, but I'm used to managing on my own." Although her voice was soft, there was a quiet dignity in her refusal that caught Andrew off guard. She gave a polite bow of her head. "I have to go. Take care." Andrew tried to insist further, but she stood firm. With a slight wave, Mia left, heading to her usual bus line. As she disappeared into the city crowd, Andrew felt a sense of emptiness. It was jarring. Minutes earlier he'd come close to death, and now the one who saved him had vanished as though she'd never been there at all, leaving behind only the scattered groceries on the road and the memory of her quiet bravery. He picked up a couple of her fallen items, an apple rolling on the ground, a small can of soup, realizing she'd left them in her rush to ensure he was okay. Guilt and gratitude intertwined in his chest. Andrew rarely interacted with people beyond the polished circles of affluence, where every conversation seemed to come with an agenda. Yet Mia had risked her life for his with no hesitation, and then walked away expecting nothing in return. Later that evening, Andrew sat in his high-rise apartment, a luxury penthouse overlooking the city skyline. The glass walls offered a panoramic view of the endless urban lights, but he found little comfort in them. A neat stack of contracts and proposals sat waiting on a modern coffee table, and on any other day he would be buried in them, securing deals for expansions and investments. But his heart and mind were elsewhere. All he could think about was the moment Mia pushed him out of danger. He remembered the unwavering concern in her eyes, the selflessness in her actions, the quiet refusal to take anything from him. He tried to focus on business emails but ended up typing half sentences and then deleting them. The hum of the air conditioner and the occasional beep of his phone from stock alerts only made the penthouse feel lonelier, reminding him that without the constant flurry of corporate demands, his personal life was largely empty. Andrew realized, perhaps for the first time, that although he was wealthier than most, something substantial was missing. He had no one who would risk themselves for him without thinking of the potential gain, and he had never been that person for anyone else. The thought unsettled him more than he cared to admit. Meanwhile, in a tiny studio apartment across town, Mia tended to her mother, carefully measuring out pills and a glass of water. Ignoring the soreness in her shoulder, she asked how her Mother's Day had been, avoiding any mention of her own near brush with death. She knew her mother would worry. That was the last thing she wanted. The older woman, frail and fighting a chronic illness, noticed the tired look in Mia's eyes. She gently touched her daughter's bruised arm and frowned, suspecting something had happened. But Mia only smiled softly, deflecting her mother's questions with humor and reassurance. After all, her mother's peace of mind took priority over everything else. Yet when night fell and she finally lay down on her small bed with the single lamp flickering beside it, Mia found herself thinking about the man she had saved. She recalled his stunned expression, the confusion that quickly gave way to concern for her wounds. She remembered how his face softened when he saw she was hurt. Mia wondered if he was truly okay, and scolded herself for not insisting he get thoroughly checked in a hospital. He seemed well enough, she murmured to herself, pressing a hand gently over her own bruised shoulder. He has the resources to look after himself if he needs it. Outside, the city lights shimmered, each one a faint reminder of countless lives interwoven in the metropolis. Mia drifted off to sleep, unaware that far across town, Andrew lay awake in his penthouse, haunted by the same memory of the intersection. Each harbored the faint echo of the other's presence. A nurse who saved a stranger's life, a CEO who owed his life to a stranger, and neither of them knew that destiny was already at work, spinning a thread that would pull them together again in ways neither could have anticipated. Would you like me to continue with section 210? O1 Pro. Você disse yes. O ChatGPT disse desafios e segredos no caminho da verdade. Pensou por 228 section 210. The next morning, Andrew Langford found himself uncharacteristically distracted. Instead of going straight to the office at the crack of dawn, he lingered in his penthouse, a fresh mug of coffee cooling on the quartz countertop. His customary routine was to scan the financial news or work out in his private gym, but today his usual habits felt hollow. Every so often he pressed a tentative hand over his ribs, remembering the near miss of the previous day. He still felt an echo of the shock that flooded through him when the car nearly struck. More than that, he couldn't shake the memory of Mia, her calm urgency, her willingness to sacrifice her body to save his. Andrew ran a hand through his neatly groomed hair, mentally debating whether to ask his security detail to track her down. It felt intrusive to use his resources that way, yet he couldn't rest without at least checking on her. A cynical voice in his head reminded him that plenty of people might exploit such a situation for money or blackmail, but something in his gut insisted Mia was different. He remembered how she'd refused even a simple cab ride, how she'd vanished with nothing but a grateful nod, no intention of making demands. For a moment, Andrew wondered if, in the swirl of adrenaline, he had only imagined her selfless grace. But the bruises on his elbow and the cuts on his hand were very real proof. She had been there, and he owed her a debt that had no price tag. Before he could overthink further, Andrew called one of the security staff assigned to him by his corporation's board of directors. "I need a quiet inquiry," he said, forcing a note of authority into his tone. "Discreet, please. About a woman named Mia, no last name, works as a nurse in the city, roughly 25 years old, possibly employed at one of the public clinics. Start with the hospital records from yesterday's incident. Let me know if you find anything." He ended the call feeling half guilty about the intrusion but convinced it was necessary. The city had dozens of clinics and countless nurses. How else would he locate her? He simply wanted to ensure she was safe and help her with any medical costs. He reminded himself that this was an act of gratitude, not meddling. Still, the sense that he was crossing a line tugged at the back of his mind. Meanwhile, Mia was already at the small public clinic, wearing her neatly pressed, if slightly faded, nurse's uniform. She stood at the reception desk with a clipboard, checking the supply list for the day. The pain in her shoulder flared every time she lifted her arm, but she soldiered on without complaint. Her co-worker, Lucy, a seasoned nurse with a caring but no-nonsense demeanor, noticed Mia wincing and confronted her. "Mia, you've been rubbing your shoulder all morning," Lucy said. "Let me take a look. Did you fall?" Caught off guard, Mia tried to brush it off. "I'm fine. Just a little bruise." Really, Lucy, I appreciate your concern, but I can handle it. Lucy frowned, pursing her lips. We have enough injuries coming through here. You don't need to add yourself to the list. Sit for a moment. With a sigh, Mia allowed Lucy to gently roll up the sleeve of her uniform. A large purple bruise marred the skin of her upper arm, swelling around her shoulder. Lucy's eyebrows rose in alarm. This is not just a bruise, Mia. It looks like a strong impact. What on earth happened? Mia glanced away, hesitant to worry Lucy with the truth. But Lucy's sharp gaze made evasion impossible. So Mia relented, telling her coworker the whole story in a low voice. The malfunctioning traffic light, the speeding car, the stranger she saved. She omitted Andrew's name. She didn't know it at the time, but she described his immaculate suit and the aura of wealth. Lucy stared at her. You pushed a man out of the path of a speeding car and then just came to work the next day? Her voice was a mix of disbelief and exasperation. You should have gone to the hospital, done x-rays. You might have a torn ligament or worse. Mia shook her head. I didn't want to make a fuss. Our finances at home are tight, Lucy. You know that. I can't afford to skip shifts or pay for extensive tests right now. Lucy exhaled, half admiring Mia's steadfastness, half frustrated by her self-neglect. At least ice it when you can. And if the pain gets worse, promise me you'll see a doctor. Properly. Mia smiled gratefully, promising she would. Deep inside, she hoped the bruise would fade quickly. She had no time or money to deal with bigger complications. The clinic's patients needed her. Elderly folks with chronic conditions, parents with sick children, unemployed workers who had no insurance. Mia felt responsible, and she would not let them down. That afternoon, while she was helping an older man with his blood pressure, the clinic's phone rang. The receptionist, a sweet woman named Carla, called Mia over once the line ended. Mia, you have an interesting admirer, Carla teased. Some private security office called asking if a nurse named Mia worked here. I told them I can't give out personal details, especially over the phone, but they claimed it was urgent and asked for you by first name. Mia's heart skipped a beat. Private security office? Could it be the man she saved? But why would he be searching for her so soon? A flutter of both nerves and curiosity spread in her chest. She instructed Carla to say politely she wasn't available. Inside, she had no clue whether she wanted to accept or avoid contact with a man who, she guessed, must come from a very different world. As Carla promised to uphold the clinic's privacy policy, Mia felt a momentary pang. Was she being rude or dismissive? Then again, they had no guarantee of the caller's intentions. Perhaps she was safer this way. Her simpler life held enough burdens without entangling herself in the affairs of a mysterious millionaire, even if he was the man she rescued. Across town, Andrew's security contact confirmed the phone call had led nowhere, only that Mia did indeed exist, and that a protective colleague had refused to provide information. Andrew was momentarily stumped. He told himself that was the end of it. She didn't want to be found. She wanted to remain private. But as the hours ticked on, a stubborn part of him refused to give up. He rescheduled his afternoon appointments to free up some time. On a whim, he decided to visit public clinics in person, all while telling no one at the office the real reason for his absence. Clad in a casual shirt and jeans, an unusual look for him, Andrew asked his driver to pull up discreetly at the first clinic on his list. Inside the small waiting area, he received a few curious glances from staff and patients who recognized something polished in his stance. Andrew approached the front desk and tried to sound as friendly as possible. Good afternoon. My name's Andrew. I'm looking for a nurse named Mia. Someone said she might work around here. Could you help me, please? The clinic staff apologized, shaking their heads and explaining no Mia worked there. Disappointed but not deterred, Andrew thanked them and moved on. He repeated this search at 2 more locations, all with the same results. Several hours later, he found himself stuck in traffic, glancing at the time on his phone. He had one final address to try for the day. It was late afternoon when he stepped into a cramped yet tidy facility where a handful of patients sat waiting. Andrew walked to the receptionist's desk, reminded himself to keep calm, and asked his question once more. "Hello, I'm sorry to bother you, but I'm looking for a nurse named Mia. Dark hair, mid-20s, we met recently and I need to find her." He tried to sound casual, but an edge of urgency slipped into his voice. The receptionist eyed him with the suspicion often reserved for salesmen or paparazzi. "Why do you need to see her?" Andrew hesitated. "She helped me out, and I'd like to return the favor." For a moment, the receptionist studied Andrew. Then, with a tight smile, she said, "We have more than one Mia in the system, but privacy regulations mean I can't share staff details." Andrew sighed. He'd heard this line all day. Still, he nodded respectfully and left his business card on the desk. "If she works here, please ask her to call me. It's important." He walked back out. Dusk was settling, and Andrew felt a pang of defeat. Would she ever see his card or get his message? Maybe she would and simply choose not to respond. He reminded himself that she had every right to ignore him. Yet the thought that he might never see her again caused a twist of regret in his chest. That same evening, Mia finished her shift, slipping on her jacket over her nurse's uniform. Lucy walked beside her out of the clinic. Both women were tired, their feet sore from hours on duty. As they headed for the bus stop, Carla, the receptionist, suddenly called after them. "Mia, wait, I forgot. A man came in earlier asking for a nurse named Mia. He left a business card. I told him I couldn't give out personal details, but you might want to see this." She handed Mia a simple white card embossed with dark letters. Andrew Langford, CEO, Langford Investments. It listed a phone number and an office address in an upscale district. Lucy whistled softly. "CEO, Langford Investments is massive. Is he the same man from your accident story?" "I think so." Mia swallowed, reading the name again. Andrew Langford. She recalled his refined appearance, the flicker of concern in his eyes after the accident. The pieces fit together with startling clarity. He was wealthy, powerful, and evidently determined to locate her. "He says it's important." Carla shrugged, walking back inside. Mia tucked the card into her pocket, uncertain. As Lucy hailed the bus, Mia's mind spun. Should she contact him? Would it be rude or ungrateful not to? Would it invite complications she couldn't handle? That night, after she prepared her mother's dinner and washed the dishes, Mia sat on her small bed. She held the crisp business card under the pale yellow glow of a single lamp, turning it over repeatedly. Her heart pounded with apprehension. She owed nothing to Andrew Langford, but she also knew the weight of gratitude he must be feeling. On the one hand, calling him might risk being drawn into a world she didn't understand. On the other, avoiding his call might be unfair, especially if he wanted to repay medical bills or offer some help she genuinely needed. Eventually, she set the card on her nightstand, deciding to sleep on it. She told herself that tomorrow she would know how to proceed. Perhaps she'd simply thank him for his kindness and move on. Or maybe she'd say nothing at all. In truth, Mia wasn't sure what she wanted. Fate had already brought them together once in a burst of danger and adrenaline. Now she feared that any further contact might send ripples through her carefully balanced life, ripples she might not be ready for. Across the city, Andrew gazed out at the skyline from his penthouse floor. All the lights of the metropolis sprawled beneath him. His mind drifted again to the unknown nurse, the woman who risked herself so selflessly. He wondered if she had seen his card, if she'd decide to reach out, or if she'd forever remain a memory of an impossible kindness. He found the uncertainty unsettling. In business, he thrived on control and clarity. But this was different. This was the edge of an unexpected, very personal unknown. As night stretched into the silent hours, both Andrew and Mia hovered on the threshold of a choice that neither of them knew would change their paths forever. Because what had begun as a moment of fate on the street was quickly weaving into something deeper, something that neither the wealthy CEO nor the humble nurse could fully comprehend just yet. Their worlds were on the verge of colliding once more, this time with echoes far beyond a single accident. O1 Pro. Você disse, yes. O ChatGPT disse, love beyond the accident. Pensou por Trema 14 section 310. The next day dawned gray, as if the sky itself were reflecting the unease both Mia and Andrew felt. In Mia's tiny apartment, the morning routine played out in hushed motions. Her mother took her medication with a weary sigh, and Mia prepared a simple breakfast of toast and boiled eggs. Although she moved with practiced care, her thoughts kept returning to the business card on her nightstand. She'd hardly slept, mulling over the decision of whether to call Andrew Langford or not. By the time she caught her usual bus to the clinic, Mia had convinced herself to tuck the card safely into her bag. She wouldn't call him yet, she just didn't feel entirely ready. But she wanted the option. Halfway to work, she closed her eyes against the city's clamor and replayed the fateful moment in the intersection, Andrew's startled expression as she pulled him from harm's way. Despite all her trepidation, a gentle warmth flickered in her chest at the memory of his concern. At the clinic, Lucy greeted her with immediate, bustling energy. "I want to check your shoulder before anything else," she declared, even before Mia had time to remove her jacket. She hustled Mia into a supply room, lifting the short sleeve of her uniform to examine the bruise. It had begun to fade at the edges but still looked sore. "That's better than yesterday," Lucy pronounced, though her brow furrowed with worry. "But I wish you'd see a doctor." Mia simply nodded, not wanting to argue. "I will if it doesn't heal soon, I promise." Before Lucy could press further, Carla called from the reception desk. A surly young man, tall and dressed in a hooded sweatshirt, was causing a commotion over his patient file. His voice rose, echoing through the cramped waiting area. With a sigh, Mia headed out to calm the situation. Just another day of service. She was adept at diffusing tensions, and sure enough, within minutes, she had soothed the man's frustration, promising to help him fill out the necessary forms so he could receive proper care. Yet as she returned to the front desk, Mia noticed a new hush in the clinic. A handful of patients stared curiously toward the door. She followed their gazes and froze. Standing at the entrance, looking a little uncertain amidst the chaotic swirl of low-income patients, was Andrew Langford. He wore a tailored blazer and crisp slacks, strikingly out of place in the modest environment. At his side stood a bodyguard or driver, Mia wasn't sure which, also dressed sharply. She felt her stomach tighten with anxiety. How had he found her workplace so quickly? Did he plan on causing a scene? A swirl of thoughts rushed through her mind. Embarrassment at her surroundings, concern that he might see the rundown conditions, and a faint spark of relief. She realized, uncomfortably, that part of her was glad he came. Andrew paused a few steps into the waiting area, scanning for a face he recognized. Their eyes met. A brief flicker of relief crossed his features, quickly replaced by something gentler. Gratitude, perhaps. Mia caught Lucy's glance as her co-worker recognized the man from Mia's story. Lucy's eyebrows arched in silent question, but Mia merely shrugged, trying to appear composed as she approached Andrew. "Mr. Langford," she said quietly. She wasn't sure what to call him. All she had was that business card. "Mia," he replied, voice lowered to match the clinic's hush. "I hope you don't mind my dropping by. I couldn't just leave things the way they were." She swallowed, glancing around at the patients who were still watching them with open curiosity. "Let's, talk over here," she suggested, guiding him toward a corner of the reception area that offered a little privacy. From the corner of her eye, she saw Lucy shepherd the gawking patients back to their chairs. Once they stood away from prying ears, Andrew straightened. "I've been trying to locate you for days, since the accident. I wanted to make sure you were okay, and to thank you properly. I know you refused help before, but if you need medical treatment, therapy, anything, please allow me to cover it." Mia felt her cheeks warm under his earnest gaze. His words came out so sincere she almost believed he cared more for her than just clearing a sense of debt. But she forced herself to remain level-headed. "I'm fine," she managed politely. "Thank you, though." Andrew studied her uniform, noticing her name badge pinned to the faded fabric. "Is your shoulder healing well?" He sounded genuinely concerned. She nodded. "Yes. My co-workers have been looking after me, and it's really just a bruise. Not as bad as it could have been." Then she mustered her courage. "But Mr. Langford, you shouldn't have come all the way here. This clinic, well, we don't usually get visitors like you." A faint smile touched his lips. "You saved my life, Mia. A short trip is the least I can do, and—" He paused, searching for the right phrasing. "I'd like to do more. I know you asked for nothing, but maybe there's something I can offer to repay you. Medical supplies for the clinic, funding for equipment, or better healthcare coverage for you. Your kindness shouldn't go unrewarded." Her immediate reaction was to decline. It felt too grand and made her uneasy. Yet she pictured her mother ill and requiring medication that sometimes went beyond Mia's budget. She pictured the antiquated machines in the clinic that frequently broke, making patient care difficult. The tension in her chest grew. She wanted to stand by her independence, but the idea of help, real, meaningful help, could benefit more people than just herself. She inhaled. "We manage here, Mr. Langford. This place exists because of people who have nowhere else to go. We do what we can, and yes, there's always a shortage of supplies, but I'm not comfortable accepting any personal gifts." Andrew tilted his head. "What if the help isn't personal? What if it's a donation to the clinic? Many successful businesses do philanthropy, it's not unusual." Mia hesitated. "That might be possible, but I'm not the one in charge. The director makes decisions about external funding." Nodding, Andrew offered a small, reassuring smile. "If it's okay with you, maybe you could put me in touch with the director. I'd be happy to see how I can contribute. No strings attached." Though a swirl of unease remained in her stomach, Mia relented. Helping the clinic wasn't a self-serving gesture for her, and if Andrew was sincere, it could improve countless lives. "All right," she agreed softly. "I'll mention it to our director. He'll have to schedule a proper meeting, though." A flicker of relief passed over Andrew's features. "That's all I ask. Thank you." Just then, Lucy appeared, clearing her throat politely. "Mia, sorry, but we have an urgent walk-in. A child with a high fever." Mia immediately refocused. "Of course. Excuse me, Mr. Langford. Duty calls." He inclined his head, and as she stepped away, he gently caught her elbow. "Thank you again, Mia, for everything. Truly." She felt his warmth even through the thin fabric of her sleeve. For a heartbeat, she locked eyes with him, glimpsing a depth she hadn't expected. Then she nodded, pulling away to rush after Lucy. Andrew watched her go, a subdued admiration filling him. Back in his sleek, silent car, Andrew settled into the leather seat, mind swirling with the clinic's cramped hallways, the exhausted faces of patients, the gentle resolve in Mia's eyes. He'd never imagined how wide the gap was between his circle of privilege and the everyday struggles of people just miles away from his penthouse. Even more surprising was Mia's quiet dignity. She could have asked for money on the spot, but instead, she deferred to her clinic's greater needs. That selflessness intrigued him further. His driver, Jensen, eyed him via the rearview mirror. "Everything all right, sir?" Andrew tapped his fingers absently on his phone, feeling unsettled but not in an unpleasant way. "Yes, Jensen," he said at length. "I'm just thinking." "About the donation, sir?" Jensen prompted, a neutral expression on his face. "That, and other matters," Andrew replied cryptically. He had a board meeting in 2 hours. Typically, he'd dive into the investor briefs or check the stock performance. But now, his mind kept wandering back to the battered walls of the clinic and Mia's cautious, welcoming smile. When he arrived at his corporate headquarters, Andrew breezed through the shiny lobby. Dark marble floors, polished chrome decor, stern-faced executives hurrying about. Everyone nodded at him, stepping aside respectfully. He forced himself to refocus. The business at hand demanded a major decision regarding a merger that could potentially expand his empire into new markets. His CFO and a row of vice presidents awaited him in a glass-walled conference room. Still, even as charts lit up on digital displays and the CFO droned about projected returns, Andrew found his thoughts drifting. He'd grown used to the hustle of big deals and the adrenaline of multi-million-dollar negotiations, but after the near accident and the unexpected generosity of Mia's world, all of this felt momentarily hollow. His father's voice echoed in his memory, an austere baritone always urging Andrew to push harder, achieve more, reminding him that the Langford name demanded excellence, social appearances, forging alliances with other elite families. It was all part of preserving status. Andrew had followed that path since youth, rarely questioning it. Yet how quickly his father's lessons on prestige faded in the face of Mia's unconditional kindness. He forced his attention back to the CFO, making decisive comments when needed. By the meeting's end, the board was satisfied that Andrew remained firmly in control. But as the room cleared out, he leaned back in his chair, pinching the bridge of his nose in an uncharacteristic sign of fatigue. Looking through the glass walls at the panorama of the city, Andrew wondered how many more Mias existed out there, people sacrificing daily for others, never asking for recognition. An unsettling feeling bloomed inside him. Had he spent years in a bubble of wealth and influence, ignoring the real pulse of humanity? Perhaps so. At the clinic, Mia worked through her shift with the same diligence as always. Yet her concentration wavered once or twice, picturing Andrew's upright posture and that quietly earnest look on his face. She admitted, at least to herself, that his presence had stirred something unexpected, a mix of curiosity, admiration, and a faint dread of what might happen next. As evening approached, the director of the clinic, a kindly older doctor named Dr. Haas, returned from an outreach event. Lucy wasted no time filling him in. "Dr. Haas, you won't believe who dropped by. Andrew Langford, the CEO of Langford Investments. He was here looking for Mia, wants to discuss a donation to our clinic." Dr. Haas blinked in astonishment, glancing at Mia with new respect. "Is that so, Nurse Mia? This is quite unusual. You, personally, are acquainted with Mr. Langford?" Mia shifted, feeling the weight of everyone's eyes. "It's a long story, Doctor. He just owes me a favor. But if it can help the clinic, I'm willing to coordinate a meeting." The doctor's expression turned hopeful. The clinic had struggled with funding for years. A major donation could be transformational. But behind his eyes, Mia also saw a flicker of caution. He did not want to compromise the clinic's integrity for a wealthy donor's vanity or potential publicity stunt. "Well, I'd be happy to talk with him. Could you set that up?" Mia nodded, though a pit of anxiety formed in her stomach. She'd have to contact Andrew to arrange the details. She could only guess how that conversation might go. After all, Mr. Langford was from a sphere of private jets and lavish parties, while her world revolved around the daily heartbreak of underinsured patients and outdated medical supplies. She worried about bridging the gulf between them. That night, after finishing her shift, Mia huddled at the single desk in the corner of her studio, the overhead light buzzing faintly. With her mother resting, she was free to call Andrew without interruption. She carefully dialed the number from his business card, telling herself that this was strictly professional. About the clinic, nothing more. He answered on the second ring. "Andrew Langford." Mia hesitated at the sound of his voice. Then she spoke quietly. "It's Mia. From the clinic." A pause, as though he needed a moment to absorb that it was actually her. Then his tone filled with relief. "Mia, thank you for calling. How are you?" She cleared her throat. Well, listen, The clinic director is interested in meeting you regarding your donation offer. Of course, Andrew replied. Whenever is convenient. I'll rearrange my schedule for it. His eagerness made her smile briefly. We have an open slot on Thursday morning. Could you come then? Thursday, he echoed, probably scanning his mental calendar. Yes, that's good, I'll be there. All right, she said. Her voice trailed off, thinking if there was anything else to mention. She sensed his anticipation, like he wanted to say more but wasn't sure how. The silence grew awkward. Finally, Andrew ventured, "And you, how's your shoulder? Has it improved?" Mia closed her eyes, fighting a sudden wave of conflicted gratitude. "It's healing, thank you." They shared another moment of quiet, neither certain how to navigate the gap in their worlds. Mia forced a polite conclusion. "I'll see you Thursday then. Thank you for your willingness to help the clinic." "No," Andrew said softly. "I'm the one who should be thanking you. Always." She ended the call with a soft click, her heart beating faster than she liked. This was all too new, too strange. On the other end of the line, Andrew remained holding his phone, gazing at the city's lights through his penthouse window. A sense of anticipation hummed through him, accompanied by an inexplicable concern for how Mia felt. As he set his phone aside, he resolved to finalize a meaningful donation that could truly bolster that rundown clinic. Yet part of him recognized that his motivation wasn't purely philanthropic. The quiet nurse who had saved him was slipping under his skin, awakening a part of him he hadn't known existed. Over the next couple of days, a certain inevitability settled around them. The upcoming meeting loomed like a turning point. Mia carefully balanced her inner worries about mixing personal deeds with charity. Andrew, on the other hand, pored over philanthropic strategies, wanting to ensure every gesture came across as sincere rather than transactional. Neither fully admitted, least of all to themselves, the growing spark that flickered each time they recalled the other's face. By Wednesday night, both Mia and Andrew lay awake in their respective homes, she in her cramped studio, he in his luxurious penthouse. Each stared at the ceiling, anticipating Thursday's meeting as if it were some momentous event. In a way, it was. They had begun to orbit each other's worlds, and the gravitational pull was only strengthening. Unbeknownst to them, greater forces, social prejudices, corporate politics, familial expectations were already lining up to test the fragile connection they were forging. Soon they would stand face to face in the modest office of Dr. Haas, bridging the gap between wealth and need, tradition and compassion. And from that moment, neither of their lives would remain the same, as the gulf separating the poor nurse and the secretive millionaire started to close, one careful step at a time. O1 Pro. Você disse, yes. O ChatGPT disse, solicitação de O1 Pro Mode. Terminou de refletir, section 4 to 10 Thursday morning arrived with a crisp clarity in the air, a mild breeze brushing against the city's busy streets. Mia woke up earlier than usual, her nerves alive with anticipation. She carefully selected one of her better-fitting nurse uniforms, smoothing away any wrinkles. Though the day would start like any other, preparing medications at the clinic, tending to the typical flow of patients, she knew that by mid-morning Andrew Langford would step into Dr. Haas's office to discuss his potential donation, and she was the one facilitating the meeting. She reminded herself more than once that this was simply a philanthropic matter. Yet, an unspoken swirl of worry and curiosity filled her. Would Andrew come alone, or with an entourage of lawyers? Would Dr. Haas be overwhelmed by the scale of Andrew's resources? Above all, how would she feel seeing him again in a more official setting? On the bus ride to work, Mia gazed through the window, letting the city's ebb and flow distract her from her racing thoughts. At the next stop, an elderly woman climbed aboard, struggling with her cane. Mia immediately got up to offer her seat. That small act of kindness felt grounding, reminding her that her main purpose today, as every day, was to help others. When she arrived at the clinic, Dr. Haas was already waiting for her, reviewing charts at the front desk. He offered her a warm, grateful smile. "I appreciate all you're doing, Mia," he said softly. "If Mr. Langford is serious, this could be a turning point for our funding crisis, but I don't want you to feel any undue pressure." Mia nodded. "I understand, Dr. Haas. I'm just hoping we can present our needs honestly. If he sees what we do here, maybe he'll support us in a meaningful way." Though the older man patted her arm reassuringly, she caught a flicker of anxiety in his eyes. Both recognized that acceptance of any large donation might come with strings, expectations, branding, potential conditions. But for a clinic that struggled monthly to keep its doors open, any help was worth exploring. Lucy, meanwhile, was already setting up a small tray of coffee and tea in Dr. Haas's modest office, muttering about how the broken air conditioner gave the room a perpetual stuffiness. Around 10 o'clock, the front entrance swung open. A hush fell in the waiting area as Andrew stepped in, wearing a tailored suit in a lighter shade of charcoal, radiating quiet confidence. A single aide followed behind him, carrying a slim portfolio. Mia's heart gave a small jolt at the sight of him. Even in the day-to-day bustle, Andrew stood out, his posture poised, his expression calm yet attentive. They locked eyes, and he gave a polite nod. She stepped forward to greet him, mustering a welcoming smile. "Thank you for coming, Mr. Langford," she said. "Dr. Haas is ready to meet you." Andrew offered a quick glance around the clinic's peeling walls and crowded chairs. "Thank you for having me." He moved in closer, dropping his voice. "And please, call me Andrew." The casual warmth of his tone made her cheeks flush slightly. Still, she remained professional. "Right this way," she replied, guiding him down the short corridor to the director's office. Inside, Dr. Haas rose from behind his old wooden desk, extending a hand. "Mr. Langford, I'm Dr. Harold Haas. Welcome to our clinic. We're very grateful for your interest." Andrew shook his hand. "Thank you, Doctor. I've heard a lot about the work you do here from Mia. It's admirable, especially considering the constraints you face." As Dr. Haas gestured for him to sit, Lucy slipped out, leaving the three of them alone. Mia found a seat off to the side, not wanting to hover too close but prepared to clarify the clinic's needs if asked. In a corner, the air conditioner groaned, pushing out a trickle of cool air. Andrew set a sleek folder on the desk. "I'd like to learn more about your mission, your challenges, and how a donation from my company could be most effectively used. Mia mentioned supplies are a constant issue." Dr. Haas took a breath, carefully controlling his excitement. "Yes, supplies, staff training, and facility upgrades. These are our biggest hurdles. The neighborhood we serve has many low-income families and elderly patients, often without insurance. Our resources barely cover the basics. We manage, but we have to turn away some specialized cases. And even with everyday cases, we're often short on equipment." Andrew listened intently, jotting occasional notes. Mia watched him, half surprised at how fully he seemed to immerse himself in the details. She expected him to maintain a detached courtesy, but he asked incisive questions. "Do you have an on-site pharmacy, or do patients fill prescriptions elsewhere? How often does your only ultrasound machine break down? What's the wait time for essential lab tests?" Dr. Haas explained the outdated lab equipment, the high costs of repairs, the frequent need to refer patients to distant facilities. At one point, Andrew glanced at Mia. "You work directly with the patients every day. From your perspective, what should we prioritize first?" She blinked, surprised he was seeking her input. "Well, for me, the priority is ensuring we can diagnose conditions quickly. It's heartbreaking to see patients delayed or misdiagnosed because we lack reliable lab tests or scanning tools. And obviously, basic pharmaceuticals can be a challenge. Sometimes the local pharmacies won't supply enough on credit, so we run short on life-saving meds." Andrew nodded, his eyes lingering on her face. "That clarifies a lot." He turned back to Dr. Haas. "We have a charitable arm at Langford Investments. I propose we work together on a structured donation. enough to upgrade your lab and supply essential meds for at least a year, maybe 2. Beyond that, we can discuss ongoing support. I'd like this to be sustainable." A stunned silence filled the room. Dr. Haas exhaled slowly, hope shining in his eyes. "That would be remarkable, Mr. Langford, but it's more than we expected. Are you certain?" Andrew offered a slight, confident smile. "My company invests in many projects, Doctor. This is an investment, too, one in the health of this community. And please, call me Andrew." Mia felt a flicker of relief and admiration. This was far beyond a token gesture. Yet she sensed the magnitude of it and couldn't help worrying if Andrew's board or associates might raise objections. Wealthy people rarely gave large sums without constraints, but Andrew's expression conveyed sincerity. "Doctor," Andrew continued, "if possible, I'd also like to see parts of the clinic in person. Nothing invasive, just to understand your operations." Dr. Haas glanced at Mia, who quickly nodded. "Of course," she said. "I'll guide you around." They began a short tour of the facility, narrow hallways with chipped paint, an overburdened nursing station, a small waiting area with worn seats. Mia introduced him to Lucy and a few other staff members, all of whom greeted Andrew politely. Patients turned their heads to look at the well-dressed visitor. One older man recognized Andrew from a news segment, whispering excitedly to another patient. As they moved through each cramped room, Andrew's gaze grew more somber. In the single exam room used for ultrasounds, the machine that often malfunctioned stood like a relic from decades prior. He asked specific questions about how often it failed, who did the repairs, what kind of modern technology might ease the staff's workload. At the end of the tour, they returned to Dr. Haas's office. Mia noticed Andrew's aide discreetly taking notes on a tablet, presumably gathering data for the upcoming donation plan. Finally, Andrew stood, buttoning his suit jacket. "This has been very informative," he told Dr. Haas. "I'll have my charitable team send over a draft agreement outlining the donation and how we'd like it allocated. Of course, you'll have full oversight, and we can revise it to fit your real needs." Dr. Haas's face lit up with gratitude. "That sounds perfect, Andrew. Thank you. You have no idea how many lives you'll help." Andrew glanced at Mia, offering her a small nod, then shook hands with Dr. Haas. "Believe me, Doctor, I'm beginning to understand." A short time later, Andrew and Mia stood by the clinic's entrance, where the sunlight streamed in. His aide had gone to bring the car around. Mia found herself fiddling with the hem of her uniform, unsure how to properly thank him. The quiet cluster of curious patients lingered a few feet away, making her feel self-conscious. "I'm glad you're doing this for the clinic," she finally said. "It means a lot, especially to those who have nowhere else to go." Andrew fixed his calm gaze on her. "I should have done something like this sooner. You opened my eyes, Mia, not only by saving my life, but by showing me a side of the city I rarely see." His directness made her uneasy, though not unpleasantly. "Still, this is a big step," she replied carefully. "What if your shareholders or your family disapprove? These neighborhoods don't generate profit." A faint sadness flickered in his eyes. "They might question it, yes, but I believe it's the right thing to do, and as CEO I have discretion over certain philanthropic endeavors. I'd like to use that power responsibly." She nodded. "Well, if there's ever anything the clinic can do to express thanks—" He shook his head, cutting her off gently. "No, Mia, don't speak of repaying. I'll never be able to repay what you did for me. Not fully. This donation is just one way of showing my gratitude." She swallowed, the memory of the near accident rushing back, her shoulder slamming against the car's mirror, Andrew's startled grip as they sprawled onto the asphalt. "I was just doing what anyone should," she murmured. "Maybe so," he said, "but not everyone would." They stood, caught in a shared pause that felt weighted with unspoken possibilities. Once more, Mia sensed how different their lives were. a man accustomed to boardrooms and billion-dollar deals, a nurse used to scrimping to support her mother. Yet, beneath the surface, she felt a growing connection she didn't quite know how to label. Andrew's aide pulled up in a sleek black sedan, parking at the curb. Andrew glanced at the time on his watch. "I have a meeting downtown soon, but if it's all right with you, might I keep in touch? Just to ensure the clinic's needs are being met and to see how you're doing?" The request sent a subtle heat to her cheeks. She managed to smile, trying to keep her tone light. "We have each other's numbers," she said. "I guess it's fine to check in about the clinic." He smiled back, quiet, genuine. "Then I will. Take care, Mia." With that, he stepped out into the sunlight, got into the sedan and drove away, leaving her standing at the threshold of the clinic. She released a breath she hadn't realized she was holding. From behind, Lucy approached with a teasing glint in her eye. "He's definitely handsome in person," she said playfully, though her voice was gentle. "And generous, too." Mia simply shook her head, not sure how to respond. "It's about the clinic," she repeated, almost to convince herself. Lucy looped an arm around Mia's shoulders, mindful of her sore bruise. "Of course it is, but I'm guessing that's not all that's on his mind. Or yours." Mia said nothing, only staring at the receding car. She felt a potent mix of relief, apprehension, and something she was half afraid to name, a quietly blooming hope. This delicate sense of closeness, of being seen beyond her role as a nurse or a charity case, was new territory. She wasn't certain how to navigate it, especially when the chasm between her world and Andrew's remained vast. Inside Dr. Haas's office, the man himself sank into his squeaky chair with a look of amazement. "Who would have thought," he said aloud, as if addressing the clinic walls, "that a chance encounter could lead to a chance for real change here?" He gazed at the old black-and-white photographs of past founders on the wall, half smiling. Sometimes it only takes one extraordinary moment, or one extraordinary person, to make a difference. And so, as the morning wore on, the clinic bustled with its usual patients and procedures. But beneath that routine, everyone felt the flutter of possibility. Andrew Langford had arrived, bridging the distance between affluence and poverty with genuine goodwill, and at the heart of it all stood Mia, the nurse who had unknowingly opened the door to a new chapter in both their lives. Only time would tell if gratitude could blossom into something deeper, and if the social prejudices Andrew faced and the fears Mia held would ultimately keep them apart or draw them closer together. O1 Pro. Você disse yes ao chat GPT disse, solicitação de O1 Pro Modi, terminou de refletir section 510. A week had passed since Andrew's visit to the clinic, but the ripples from that day continued to spread through Mia's life in unexpected ways. The staff was abuzz with talk of the generous donation Andrew had proposed, while Dr. Haas and a small administrative committee worked overtime drafting the official paperwork Langford Investments needed. Mia occasionally caught snippets of their plans: upgraded lab machines, reliable ultrasound equipment, funds to stock essential medications, and each time she felt both relief and a subtle weight of responsibility. After all, it was because of her that Andrew Langford had set foot in their modest clinic. She was the one who had literally thrown herself in front of a speeding car to save his life. She was the one who facilitated his meeting with Dr. Haas. And now she was the point of contact between Andrew's philanthropic coordinator and the clinic, ensuring that the donation process remained transparent and aligned with the clinic's real needs. Yet despite how busy she remained, Mia couldn't deny the more personal undercurrent running through her thoughts. Nearly every evening after her shift, she found herself checking her phone to see if there was a message from Andrew, whether to inquire about the clinic's budget or simply to ask in his polite, careful tone how her shoulder was healing. To her own surprise, she wanted to hear from him. It wasn't every day that someone so powerful and wealthy took interest not just in her work but seemingly in her well-being. His texts were never overbearing, usually just a short line or two, "How's the day going?" or "Hope the bruises are gone by now." Yet she'd grown to anticipate them more than she cared to admit. And it wasn't just about the donation or gratitude. She suspected, with a flutter of both excitement and concern, that Andrew Langford was reaching out because he genuinely wanted to stay in her orbit. The question was, did she want that too? One late afternoon, as Mia finished organizing a supply shelf, Dr. Haas approached her with a shy grin on his face. "Mia, good news. Andrew's philanthropic team sent their draft agreement. It's everything we hoped for and more. We'll have a final meeting next Tuesday to sign it officially. I was thinking you might want to be there. After all, you're the reason this came to be." Mia set down a box of bandages. "Me? Are you sure, doctor? I'm not part of management." He nodded, resolute. "You've been liaising with Andrew's office, and from what I understand, he personally asked that you attend. I believe he wants you there for the final handshake." A small flush rose in her cheeks. "All right," she said softly. "If that's what you and Andrew want, then I'll do it." Dr. Haas patted her shoulder. "Thank you. I think it'll mean a lot. Not just to him, but to everyone who knows your story." His gaze lingered, kind and paternal, before he headed off to help a nurse down the hall. Mia stared after him, feeling both proud and self-conscious. She'd never imagined that saving someone's life in an adrenaline-charged moment could lead to boardroom-level meetings and philanthropic agreements. She only hoped that everything would go smoothly, with no hidden consequences or overshadowing demands. That same evening, Andrew found himself seated in a high-rise restaurant that overlooked the city skyline, nearly eye-level with the top floors of other skyscrapers. The interior boasted chic minimalism, sleek lines, subdued lighting, exactly the kind of place he would have frequented with business associates. Indeed, at the table with him now sat two major investors in one of his newest ventures, along with a pair of attorneys. They were finishing dinner and beginning the real purpose of the evening, finalizing the details of a major merger. But Andrew's thoughts drifted. He tried to focus on the conversation, a swirl of capital valuations and expansion clauses, but the rhythm of corporate jargon felt strangely distant. More than once he pictured the run-down clinic hallways, contrasting so sharply with this polished restaurant. He remembered Mia's soft voice as she explained how they struggled to keep up with medication demands. He recalled her shy smile when he promised to fund an upgraded lab. He imagined the relief on her face when the philanthropic deal was signed, and, if he were honest, he realized he wanted to see that reaction in person. His phone vibrated on the table, drawing the attention of the investors. Andrew offered them a polite nod, his way of saying he would check if it was urgent, and glanced at the screen. It wasn't an emergency, just a text from his philanthropic coordinator confirming the final draft for the clinic agreement. Nonetheless, seeing the words "clinic donation Mia" in the message made him feel a subtle burst of warmth. He typed a quick response, ignoring the quizzical look from one of the attorneys. As he slipped the phone into his pocket, Andrew realized that for the first time in his life, the usual rush from a potential million-dollar merger was overshadowed by a philanthropic endeavor. More specifically, overshadowed by the thought of the gentle nurse who had saved him. He shook off the distraction for the moment, returning to the conversation at hand. The investors needed assurance that Andrew was still the unwavering, deal-minded CEO they'd known for years. He reminded himself that the donation and the clinic were personal choices. The two worlds might clash eventually, but for now he had to maintain a seamless facade of composure and confidence. The following day, Mia woke to find a text from Andrew waiting on her phone. "Good morning, Mia. Our team confirmed Tuesday for the signing. Dr. Haas sent me the final figures. Everything looks good. Let me know if you need anything in the meantime, and I hope you're still taking care of that shoulder." She couldn't help the small grin that tugged at her lips. Sitting on the edge of her bed, she typed a reply. "Morning, Andrew. Shoulders almost fully healed. Thanks for checking. Tuesday sounds good. Dr. Haas told me. We'll be ready. Have a nice day. Simple, polite, and unassuming, she thought. Yet she couldn't deny the spark of energy that sent her heart fluttering. With a quick breath, she tucked her phone away and went about her usual tasks, making breakfast for her mother, checking that her mother's prescriptions were in order, then hurrying to catch her bus. At the clinic, Lucy wasted no time cornering her at the reception desk. "You've been glowing since you got here. Did someone text you? Maybe a certain handsome CEO?" Mia tried to act nonchalant. "Lucy, hush. It's about the donation, that's all." Lucy's smirk said she wasn't convinced. "Sure it is. Anyway, Dr. Haas said Tuesday's the big day. I hear you'll be front and center." Mia's cheeks warmed. "I'm not front and center. Just present to thank him, that's all." "Uh-huh," Lucy winked. "Well, I'll be cheering you on from the sidelines. Maybe we'll even see him do something super romantic, like kneel down with a big check in your honor." Mia rolled her eyes but couldn't suppress a laugh. "He'd never do that. He's professional, Lucy. Professional doesn't mean blind." With that, Lucy sauntered off, leaving Mia to her uneasy thoughts. She spent the rest of her shift overseeing patient intake, assisting with wound care, and double-checking medical stocks. Yet Lucy's teasing words lingered. Was Mia's flustered reaction all in her head, or had Andrew truly hinted at something more than gratitude? She replayed their brief phone calls and texts in her mind, searching for hidden subtext. A few times, she caught herself daydreaming, only to snap back to reality when a patient needed her immediate attention. Saturday brought a small storm that battered the city with rain and wind. Mia's mother, prone to joint pains in damp weather, spent most of the afternoon in bed, sipping warm tea while Mia read her favorite poems aloud. Thunder rumbled overhead, shaking the windows of their modest apartment. The flickering lamp cast a soft glow on Mia's worried face. "Mia, you've been so quiet," her mother said gently, setting down the tea. "You're thinking of that man, aren't you? The one from the accident." Startled, Mia looked up. She hadn't told her mother much, only that she'd saved someone's life and that he was helping the clinic. Maybe, she admitted. "He's donating a lot of money to us. He's kind." Her mother hummed thoughtfully. "Kindness is good, but your eyes say there's more on your mind." Mia closed the poetry book on her lap. "We're so different, Mama. Our worlds don't match. He's wealthy, very wealthy. I don't want to misunderstand his generosity." Her mother studied her carefully. "Sometimes good people come from unexpected places, child. But you must protect your heart. Rich men may have complicated lives, baggage, or family pressures." Mia nodded, tension coiling in her chest. She already sensed the truth in those words. Andrew Langford likely had entire spheres of influence behind him. Business partners, high society friends, maybe even a fiancé waiting in the wings. What place did Mia have in that realm? Yet even as the storm raged outside, she felt a small flicker of longing. Because for once, it wasn't her finances or her mother's health commanding her every thought. She actually liked talking to Andrew, liked that he asked about her day, that he took the clinic's struggles seriously, that he offered help without trying to overshadow her. Early Monday morning, Andrew faced his own swirl of complications when he stepped into the executive lounge at his corporate headquarters. He'd come to finalize a minor detail about next quarter's financial disclosures, but found his father, Peter Langford, waiting by the panoramic window that overlooked the city. Tall and formidable, with silver hair and a stern bearing, Peter was the chairman who had passed most day-to-day duties to Andrew but still maintained watchful oversight. "Andrew," his father greeted tersely, "we need to discuss your recent philanthropic venture." Andrew's pulse tightened. He had half expected something like this, given the media department had circulated a small internal memo about the upcoming donation. "Good morning, Father. What about it?" Peter turned, eyes cold. Donating a sizable sum to a small clinic in a rundown neighborhood might be admirable to some, but I question the business sense. Why not allocate those funds to our more visible philanthropic partners, like the city's biggest hospital wing or the new research facility? We've built relationships there, with naming rights." Andrew inhaled, recalling that to his father, philanthropy often served as a strategic tool to bolster the company's public image or to forge alliances with influential circles. "Those projects are still being funded," he replied evenly. "This clinic donation doesn't negate our other charitable commitments." Peter's jaw set, a sign of rising impatience. "It still dilutes resources. Our board expects philanthropy that yields prominent public relations benefits, an alignment with major institutions. This little clinic offers minimal prestige." Andrew stiffened. "It's not about prestige. It's about doing actual good, reaching people who rarely get help. The cost is insignificant compared to our total philanthropic budget." His voice grew steely, an echo of the confidence that had made him CEO. "And as CEO, I have discretion over smaller philanthropy initiatives." His father eyed him sharply. "Don't let misguided sentiment steer you off course, Andrew. Remember what's at stake. Our name must remain above reproach, and our alliances with influential families are key to future deals. If you spend too much time on trivial acts, you risk losing valuable networks." Andrew felt a surge of anger, but he controlled it. "I appreciate your concern, Father, but this isn't trivial. I intend to see it through." Peter's gaze turned calculating. "This better not be about a woman," he said curtly. "I've heard murmurs that you're spending personal time at that clinic. We can't afford rumors about the Langford heir entangled in a scandal with someone beneath our social standing." Andrew's blood ran cold. "I owe my life to someone I'm grateful to, that's all," he said, voice tight. "And if I choose to help her clinic, that's my decision." A tense silence followed, broken only by the distant hum of traffic below. Finally, Peter stepped away from the window. "Very well," he said icily. "But don't forget your obligations. We have a brand, a reputation that's taken generations to build. One misstep could jeopardize all of it." Andrew remained stone-faced until his father left the lounge. Only then did he allow a shaky breath to escape. His father's words stung. It was a cruel reminder that in the Langford world, everything was about power and status. If they discovered Andrew's growing admiration for a humble nurse, the uproar could be immense, and might harm Mia too, if the press or society began to pry into her life. For the next hour, Andrew barely focused on the routine tasks of the day. His father's warning about a scandal with someone beneath them left a bitter taste. This was precisely what Mia had hinted at when she worried about social divides. He realized that if he allowed his feelings to progress, if he tried to connect more deeply with Mia, he'd be dragging her into a labyrinth of scrutiny she didn't deserve. Yet, pulling away felt unthinkable. He recalled Mia's calm warmth, her unwavering compassion. Was it fair to let his father's rigid ideas overshadow a bond that felt, for the first time, genuine? By late afternoon, Andrew's heart still wrestled with these questions, and he found himself longing for the calm anchor of Mia's presence. He couldn't articulate it fully, but she reminded him of a world outside corporate prestige, a world of simple kindness, real struggles, and honest triumphs. He decided then that he wouldn't let fear or prejudice stop him from seeing this through, at least in the capacity of a friend who valued her perspective. Come Tuesday morning, both Andrew and Mia would face the final signing of the donation agreement. On the surface, it was a triumphant day for the clinic. But beneath that celebration, tensions and hopes ran high. Andrew grappling with familial expectations, Mia cautious about her mother's counsel and her own growing emotions. As the clock ticked closer to that appointment, each would need to decide whether they could bridge the widening gap, and if the gratitude, respect, and budding affection forming between them was strong enough to challenge the social prejudices waiting just outside the clinic's doors. O1 Pro, você disse yes, o chat GPT disse Solicitação de Promode. Terminou de refletir. Section 6 Den. Tuesday morning dawned with a light, hopeful glow, as if nature itself understood the significance of the day. At the clinic, Dr. Haas had arranged a modest gathering in his cramped office, a few chairs set around the battered wooden desk, plus an extra table for snacks and coffee. Lucy fussed over where to place a small vase of daisies, determined to add a spark of cheer. There was no red carpet, no formal press coverage, yet everyone felt the same sense of anticipation. A large donation was on the verge of becoming reality, and it might save the clinic from its constant financial strain. Mia arrived early, nerves fluttering in her stomach. She'd chosen a neat, short-sleeved sweater to wear over her nurse's uniform, hoping to appear at least a bit more formal for the occasion. Though she was here to witness Dr. Haas and Andrew sign the official paperwork, she was also acutely aware that Andrew himself had requested her presence. His philanthropic coordinator had sent repeated reminders. "Mr. Langford wants you to be part of the discussion." It was flattering, if a little intimidating. By mid-morning, the hush of anticipation deepened. A knock sounded at the front door, and in walked Andrew Langford, flanked by his philanthropic coordinator and a single bodyguard who quietly stationed himself by the entrance. Andrew wore a tailored navy suit, crisp and elegant, yet there was a gentle warmth in his eyes as they landed on Mia across the waiting room. She sensed that same unspoken ease, a familiarity that caught her breath. "Welcome," Dr. Haas greeted, hurrying forward to shake Andrew's hand. "We're ready whenever you are. Please come this way." Andrew's philanthropic coordinator, a reserved woman named Clara, carried a sleek black portfolio bursting with documents. Dr. Haas led them into his office, where two members of the clinic's small administrative team were already waiting. Mia hesitated at the threshold, but Andrew caught her eye and gave a slight nod, silently urging her to follow. She found a seat off to the side, hoping she wouldn't be asked to speak too much. Lucy peeked in from the doorway, wearing her biggest grin. Mia could almost hear Lucy's playful commentary. "He's even more handsome in that suit." But Lucy behaved herself, offering only a quick wave of encouragement. Once everyone settled, Clara opened the portfolio and handed out copies of the donation agreement. Mia smoothed her hands over her lap, listening as Dr. Haas explained the clinic's final details, how they planned to allocate the funds, what new equipment they would prioritize. Andrew asked a few clarifying questions, his tone earnest rather than aloof. Despite his polished appearance, Mia could tell he truly cared about the outcome, not just the optics. "All right then," Dr. Haas said finally, adjusting his reading glasses. "Mr. Langford, Andrew, we're in agreement. I can't overstate our gratitude. This will fundamentally change how many patients we can serve." Andrew smiled, leaning forward. "I'm pleased to hear it, and please know that this donation comes without expectation of publicity. I'm more interested in results than fanfare." Mia felt a subtle warmth. He was clearly countering any notion that wealthy donors only cared about headlines. As Dr. Haas and Andrew each signed the document, a soft applause rose in the small room. Lucy, unable to contain her excitement, dashed in with a plate of pastries, offering them around like a giddy hostess. "We might not have fancy catering," Lucy joked, "but we do have donuts and gratitude. Welcome to our clinic family, Mr. Langford." Andrew chuckled, accepting a glazed pastry and biting into it. "It's an honor," he said, smiling at Lucy, then shifting his gaze toward Mia. "I'm just glad I could follow through." Dr. Haas poured coffee into paper cups, handing them around. "Today we celebrate, but tomorrow the real work begins, of course. We'll finalize our orders for new lab equipment immediately." Andrew nodded, wiping a stray crumb from his sleeve. "Feel free to reach out to my office for any further details or if there are unexpected costs. I want to ensure you have enough coverage for maintenance as well." As the clinic staff exchanged excited murmurs, Mia sensed Andrew's philanthropic coordinator packing away the now-signed agreement with a satisfied expression. In her mind, the business part was done. so she stood and whispered that she'd wait outside. Andrew lingered a moment, politely chatting with Dr. Haas before excusing himself to follow Mia out to the hallway. When they reached the reception area, she offered him a quiet smile. "Thank you again," she said, her voice low so as not to disturb the patients waiting on nearby chairs. "I know how busy you must be. This will help us more than you can imagine." His gaze flicked around the worn walls, the tired faces of people waiting their turn. "My schedule is the least of my concerns," he replied, sincerity threading his words. Then he added softly, "I'm just glad we're able to do this, especially for you, Mia. You've given so much here." Her cheeks warmed. "It's not just me. This place matters to a lot of people. I'm just one nurse doing her job." A hint of a smile curved his lips. "Some people do their job, others go beyond it. You risked your life for a stranger at an intersection. That's not in any job description." Before Mia could answer, Lucy appeared holding a small camera. "Mia, Andrew, can I get a quick picture of you two for our newsletter? Dr. Haas thinks it'd be nice to show the face behind the donation." Mia hesitated. She'd never considered the possibility of her face plastered anywhere near Andrew Langford's philanthropic record. But Lucy looked so eager, and Andrew simply nodded, stepping closer. "I'm fine with it if you are," he said, meeting Mia's eyes. She swallowed, then managed a small smile. "Sure, Lucy. Just one." They stood side by side near a wall decorated with the clinic's mission statement. Mia clasped her hands in front, trying not to appear too stiff. Andrew lightly placed one hand behind her, not touching but close enough that she felt his presence. Lucy snapped a couple shots, giggling at how formal they looked. "Got it, thanks," Lucy chirped, bounding off again. Mia released a breath, aware that some of the patients had watched the impromptu photo session with mild curiosity. Andrew turned back to her. "I imagine you'll want to get back to work, but perhaps we could talk again sometime. Outside the clinic? Maybe grab a coffee, if that's not too forward?" The offer caught her off guard. Part of her wanted to protest that he didn't owe her anything, that she wasn't comfortable bridging their separate worlds so blatantly. Yet a stronger part of her was drawn to the idea. An hour of conversation, no hospital bed in sight, no donation overshadowing them. Just two people. Well, she began uncertainly, "I do have busy shifts, but maybe I can find a day off." He nodded, an understanding flicker in his eyes. "No rush, just an idea." Before anything more could be said, Dr. Haas called out from his office, needing Andrew to confirm a detail about the equipment order. Andrew excused himself with a polite smile, heading back down the corridor. Mia exhaled, pressing a hand over her fluttering heart. This invitation to coffee felt like a step into unknown territory, one where lines might blur and expectations might rise. Later that evening, after her shift ended, Mia lingered outside the clinic in the fading daylight. Lucy locked up the front door, exchanging playful banter about how Mia should definitely text Andrew. "It's not a date," Lucy teased. "Just coffee with the man who's changing everything around here, and who you saved from a horrifying accident." "It's not that simple," Mia insisted. She tried to put her feelings into words. "We come from totally different worlds, Lucy. Rich families, corporate power. I've never dealt with that." Lucy shrugged. "Maybe that's all the more reason to have a conversation over coffee. See if he's just a normal person behind the suits and the big checks." Mia shook her head with a grin. "You make it sound so easy." "I doubt it'll be easy, but you deserve something good. And he's obviously interested in talking to you, beyond the donation." Mia's cheeks warmed at Lucy's bluntness. She pulled her bag over her shoulder, wishing she could dismiss Lucy's words. Because a small voice inside her kept repeating that Andrew might be genuinely drawn to her, not just out of gratitude but a deeper curiosity. In another universe, she might open herself to that possibility, but in this one she feared what might happen when Andrew's father or the broader world realized who she was, just a nurse from a struggling background. Still, Lucy's parting grin lingered in Mia's mind as she caught the bus home. The city lights flickered across her reflection in the window, an unspoken question in her eyes. Meanwhile, at Langford Investments' downtown headquarters, Andrew stayed late, finishing a backlog of emails. It was well past regular hours. The cleaning staff had started vacuuming the halls. He found himself scrolling through a digital copy of the signed agreement with the clinic, feeling an odd satisfaction he usually only got from closing lucrative deals. This time, though, it wasn't about profit or corporate synergy. It was about making a tangible difference. And about Mia, if he were honest with himself. He tried to push away memories of her gentle smile, focusing instead on the bullet points about equipment delivery timelines. But the moment he finished that file, his eyes drifted toward a group photo that had been emailed by Clara. She'd titled it, "Clinic Signing Day." Dr. Haas and Andrew shook hands in the foreground, with Mia in the background, smiling in quiet pride. Even in that grainy snapshot, her empathy radiated. Andrew's phone chimed with a text. He swiped to see a message from an unknown number, but the text read, "Are you done for the day? Let's talk about your priorities." Instantly his heart sank. It was from one of his father's close associates, known for discreetly monitoring Andrew's corporate dealings. No doubt the man wanted to ensure Andrew stayed aligned with the family's interests, especially after that conversation with Peter Langford about the small clinic donation. Andrew scowled. He wasn't in the mood for more paternal meddling. He typed back a curt reply, "Busy right now. We'll contact you tomorrow." Then he silenced his phone. A wave of frustration passed through him at the realization that yes, he did owe loyalty to the business and to the brand that generations of Langfords had built. But he also believed in forging his own path. If his father's circle disapproved of him mingling with someone outside their echelon, that was their problem. He wouldn't let them overshadow what felt real. Stepping away from his desk, Andrew gazed out at the city. Cars wound like tiny ants through the streets below. His reflection in the glass looked tired but resolute. He recalled Mia's expression in the hallway after they'd signed the papers. Relief, gratitude, and something tentative that might have been hope. Just the memory was enough to recenter him. He made a quiet decision that night. He would text her soon, not about the clinic, but just to talk, ask about her day, see if she was open to grabbing that coffee. Because even if it led to challenges, Andrew felt a genuine pull to know her better. The clangor of wealth and power had never yielded this sense of authenticity. Wednesday morning found Mia in a swirl of appointments for the day. She'd taken an extra shift to help cover for a coworker on leave. The waiting area was more crowded than usual, with a queue of patients needing everything from routine vaccines to urgent treatments. Dr. Haas dashed around, helping triage. Lucy, in her usual good cheer, juggled phone calls and walk-ins with surprising grace. In the midst of this chaos, Mia noticed a message on her phone during a brief lull. "Hi, Mia. Just checking in. How's the clinic adjusting to the big news? Hope everything's running smoothly. Also, let me know if you have time for coffee someday soon. No pressure." Andrew. Her heart fluttered, making it tricky to refocus on the next patient chart. Lucy caught her looking at her phone and winked. "Is that him?" Mia rolled her eyes gently but grinned. "Yes, he's asking if we're settled and if I want coffee sometime." Lucy clapped her hands. "You have to say yes. He's literally the reason half our future equipment is possible. Kidding, but also not. Go for it." Mia considered her co-worker's words. If she kept dodging Andrew, it might create more awkwardness. Yet if she met him, would that spark further complications? In the end, she recalled Lucy's advice. "You deserve something good. It might not be easy, but you deserve the chance." Before she could talk herself out of it, she typed a reply. "We're all excited at the clinic. Thank you. Next week might be lighter for me. Let's see if we can coordinate schedules for coffee. Hope you're doing well." Send. A mixture of nerves and anticipation settled into her chest. This was a small step, a casual coffee, nothing dramatic. But she couldn't deny a sense that the invisible boundary between them was shifting. Outside the clinic's walls, though, forces were already stirring. Andrew's father had begun discreetly making inquiries into the exact nature of Andrew's relationship with the unknown nurse. A few of the father's trusted allies in the corporate sphere whispered concerns about Andrew risking scandal or at least negative press if the public latched onto a story of a wealthy heir and a poor nurse. None of that had reached Mia's ears yet, but the undercurrent of social prejudice was rising. For Andrew, the coming days would be a juggling act, balancing corporate obligations, ignoring the sharp criticisms from family, and finding the courage to follow a path that felt more authentic. For Mia, each text message or phone call opened a door she'd never walked through before, one where her quiet, hard-working life might intersect with a man whose world was wrapped in wealth and watchful eyes. Whether they admitted it or not, both were tiptoeing toward an uncharted realm, a blend of gratitude, admiration, and the faint hum of possibility that had been growing since the day Mia yanked Andrew to safety in that chaotic intersection. And just like that initial moment, neither knew if they'd land unscathed, or if destiny would once again intervene in ways they could never predict. O1 Pro. Você diz yes, o ChatGPT diz title. Expect the unexpected Ponsu por 2M33 Section 710. The following week rolled in with the promise of change in the air. Mia had rearranged her schedule at the clinic, and Andrew had cleared a few hours between business meetings. So, on a mild Wednesday afternoon, Mia found herself riding the bus to a modest cafe nestled near the city's old theater district, a place neither upscale nor rundown, chosen partly because it lay between the bustling corporate center and the quieter neighborhood where Mia lived. They had agreed to meet there for coffee, away from the formality of the clinic or the intimidating marble halls of Langford Investments. Though she told herself it was just a friendly meetup, her nerves were undeniable. She wore a simple blouse instead of her usual nurse's uniform, pairing it with a neat pair of slacks. The look was professional yet approachable, or so she hoped. Her heart fluttered every time the bus stopped, and she repeatedly checked her phone to confirm she wasn't running late. By the time she got off at her stop, she had to calm her breathing to steady herself. Outside, she glimpsed Andrew's sleek car parked discreetly along the curb. A driver stepped out, recognized Mia from her photo, and offered a polite nod. She spotted Andrew a short distance away, standing on the sidewalk with his phone in hand. He was dressed more casually than usual, a collared shirt, blazer, and well-fitted trousers. Still immaculate, but noticeably less formal than his typical business attire. As he turned, their eyes met, and a subtle smile lit his face. Mia felt a similar warmth stirring inside her, a mixture of relief and anticipation. "Hi," she said, approaching him. "Hi," Andrew echoed. The crisp daylight accentuated the softness in his expression. "Shall we head inside?" She nodded. The cafe had large windows facing the street, its interior bright and welcoming. They picked a small table by the window, away from other patrons. Mia glanced around, noting the comfortable hum of conversation, the aroma of brewed coffee, and faint jazz music playing overhead. It felt ordinary and safe, worlds away from her clinic's chaos or Andrew's high-rise environment. Once they sat, Andrew ordered a cappuccino, Mia a simple latte. For a moment, neither said much, caught in a slight awkwardness that often accompanies two people trying to figure out where they stand. It was Andrew who broke the silence. "I'm glad we could do this," he said, folding his hands on the table. "Between your shifts and my meetings, finding a free hour felt impossible." Mia exhaled, a small laugh escaping. "I know. Clinics don't exactly run on flexible schedules, and I imagine your business is even more restrictive." He gave a thoughtful nod. "True, but I've realized that if something matters, you make time. I wanted us to talk outside the roles of nurse and CEO, just two people." His words resonated with her. 2 people, she repeated softly, smiling. I can do that. Their coffees arrived, and Mia took a sip, letting the warm, milky taste settle her nerves. Andrew observed her with gentle curiosity. How's your mother doing? He asked, recalling the limited details Mia had shared about her mom's health. Mia's gaze flickered downward. She's stable. Some days are better than others. We manage her medications carefully. She hesitated before adding, with the new donation, the clinic might keep more meds in stock at lower costs, which will help her and many others. I'm truly happy about that, Andrew said, leaning in. It's not just a corporate box I'm ticking off. I want to ensure real benefits. His sincerity disarmed her. She set her cup down, meeting his eyes directly. I never thought you were doing it for show, Andrew. I see how you approach the staff, the way you asked Dr. Haas so many in-depth questions. It's clear you're invested. Her voice turned quieter. But what about your family or your board? I know sometimes large donors prefer bigger, more publicity-heavy charities. Andrew's jaw tightened briefly. He considered his words. I won't lie. My father and some board members would prefer more high-profile philanthropy, naming a hospital wing or funding a research center that gets media coverage. They see the clinic as small-scale, but I have the authority to allocate a portion of funds as I see fit. A wry smile touched his lips. It's not always easy, though. A moment of empathy tugged at Mia's heart. I'm sorry. I don't want to cause friction in your company. It's not you, he assured her gently. It's the mindset they have. Everything must serve the greater brand image, but you showed me a world beyond that. His voice dropped lower. I'm grateful. Their coffees dwindled as they spoke, drifting from the clinic to more personal topics. Mia learned that Andrew had grown up under the intense eye of his father, Peter Langford, who taught him that every relationship should further his family's standing. Andrew admitted he'd spent years chasing success to prove himself worthy of the Langford name. Yet, ironically, the day Mia saved his life felt like a pivot, reminding him there was more to existence than power plays. Mia, in turn, revealed bits of her childhood in a rural township, the daily battle for resources that shaped her desire to become a nurse and her mother's chronic health issues. Andrew listened attentively, asking questions with genuine interest rather than polite courtesy. Mia found it oddly comforting. Few people ever asked about her life in such detail. When conversation ebbed, Andrew cleared his throat. So, Mia, he said quietly, we both know our lives are different. I'd be naive to ignore that. But I was wondering, if I wanted to see you more often, to talk or share a meal, how would you feel about that? Her heart pounded at the directness of his question. While a spark of happiness flickered, caution rose swiftly. She imagined the rumors that could spring up if Andrew was seen courting a low-income nurse or if her clinic co-workers started gossiping. And there was his father, whose disapproval had already caused Andrew stress. She began, choosing her words carefully. I'd like that, Andrew. I really would. But I'm worried about the complications. People might question your motives, or mine. Your father might object, and we can't pretend that difference in status isn't there. Andrew's eyes held a mixture of determination and concern. I know, he said softly. It's a real concern. But we can't let fear make the decision for us, can we? If we do, we'll always wonder what might have been. Mia considered that. She thought of how her mother taught her to face challenges head-on with courage, how she herself had never backed down from a patient's emergency because it seemed overwhelming. No, I suppose we shouldn't, she agreed. Her voice trembled slightly as she gave him a small, sincere smile. But let's go slowly, see how this unfolds, step by step. Andrew nodded, relief evident on his face. That's all I ask, step by step. The cafe's midday crowd had started to thin out, leaving them with more privacy as they continued to talk. At one point, Andrew asked about her favorite places in the city, and Mia described a local park near the river where she liked to sit and read after long shifts. He seemed intrigued, making a mental note that she saw beauty in quieter, simpler spots. They lost track of time until Mia glanced at her phone and realized she needed to return to her mother before her next hospital appointment. Gently, she pushed back her chair. "I should go." Andrew stood as well, an old-fashioned courtesy that made her smile. "Of course," he said, moving toward the door with her. Outside, the sunlight felt brighter, and the day seemed more hopeful than when she arrived. They lingered on the sidewalk, the bustle of pedestrians passing by. Andrew hesitated, then slipped his hands into his pockets. "I'm heading to an afternoon meeting," he explained. "But would you allow me to drop you off wherever you need to go? My driver can take you." Mia considered. She was about to refuse out of habit. She was used to taking care of herself. But the sincerity in his request softened her. Besides, it would save her a longer bus ride, and she needed to get home quickly. "All right," she conceded. "Thank you." In moments they were inside Andrew's car, the driver navigating the streets as Andrew and Mia sat in the back. It was quieter than the cafe, a moment of shared closeness. Mia provided her address, and the driver headed across town. She noticed Andrew glancing at her from time to time, an unspoken swirl of thoughts in his expression. Yet he respected the hush, letting the city's background noise fill the space. When the car stopped in front of her modest apartment building, Mia gathered her things. "Thanks again," she repeated softly, turning to open the door. Andrew gently touched her forearm, prompting her to pause. "Mia, I enjoyed today. Truly. Could we do this again soon, even if just for a short walk or coffee?" A shy smile curved her lips. "I'd like that. Let's coordinate. You have my number." He nodded, releasing her arm as she stepped onto the sidewalk. She watched as the car pulled away, the tinted windows hiding Andrew's face after the first few seconds. Then she turned toward her building, a complex tangle of emotions swirling. Hope, worry, excitement. She felt as though she were balancing on a precipice of some new experience, a connection forged by gratitude but slowly warming into genuine affection. Inside her apartment, her mother noticed Mia's flushed cheeks and slightly breathless demeanor. Mia downplayed it, focusing instead on her mother's upcoming appointment. But later that night, as she lay in bed, Mia allowed herself to revisit every moment of that coffee date, his thoughtful questions, the unguarded way he'd shared his own struggles, and that final gentle request to see her again. Still, the specter of Andrew's father loomed in her mind, along with the possibility of public scrutiny. Mia promised herself she'd be careful. She couldn't risk hurting her mother or endangering the clinic if something turned sour. Yet she also couldn't ignore that Andrew's presence made her feel alive, in a way she'd rarely felt. Meanwhile, in Andrew's penthouse across the city, he also replayed the day's conversation. He recalled how Mia's eyes lit up when she described her favorite park, how her genuine gratitude seemed so unlike the calculated praise he often got. He stared out at the skyline, letting the memory of her voice push away the stress of corporate demands. Step by step, he thought. He could handle that pace no matter who opposed it. But Andrew understood that the real test was imminent. His father was already suspicious, and soon enough the upper circles might stir with rumors of Andrew's secret love if they so much as caught wind of his repeated visits to a nurse from a working-class background. The question was whether Andrew and Mia could nurture this fragile connection in the face of disapproval, or if the gulf of social prejudice would force them apart before they ever discovered the full depth of what lay between them. As the days crept forward, that challenge loomed ever closer, waiting to see if gratitude and kindness could truly transform into love in a world that rarely forgave those who dared to break society's unwritten rules. O1 Pro. Você disse yes ao ChatGPT, disse. Solicitação de O1 Pro Mode. Terminou de refletir. Section 810. Morning light broke over the city, illuminating boardrooms and bus stops alike. In Andrew's penthouse, the day began with a tense phone call from his father. The older man's voice carried a clipped impatience as he rattled off questions about company business, expanding on his disapproval of Andrew's smaller philanthropic focus. Andrew answered with forced calm, choosing not to mention Mia or the coffee date he'd enjoyed with her. Though he chafed at his father's controlling tone, he knew direct confrontation would only escalate matters for now. Across town, Mia started her shift at the clinic feeling somewhat lighter. She couldn't entirely quiet the swirl of doubts, how she might fit into Andrew's life, how others might judge them. But the memory of his soft-spoken sincerity during their meet-up lent her a buoyant feeling. Lucy picked up on her mood right away. "Someone's glowing this morning," Lucy teased, sidling up as Mia readied a tray of vaccines. "You see him again, or am I just imagining things?" Mia's cheeks warmed. "It was just coffee, and he dropped me off afterward." She kept her voice subdued, mindful of patients nearby. "No big deal." Lucy arched a brow. Spoken like a woman hiding something lovely. "Seriously, though, I'm happy for you, but—" Her tone grew more serious. "Be careful, you know? It's a tough world, mixing with someone that high up." Mia sighed, finishing the vaccine prep. "Don't I know it? But I'm taking it slow." Work bustled, keeping Mia busy until midday. Dr. Haas had her assist with a tricky procedure for a diabetic patient in need of wound care. By the time she took a late lunch, she had almost forgotten her personal anxieties, absorbed by the clinic's ceaseless demands. Yet as she sat with a simple sandwich at a small break table, her phone buzzed. A text from Andrew. "Hope your day's going well. Just thinking of you. Had a tough board meeting, but your perspective keeps me grounded." Her heart gave a small flutter. She typed back, "Busy but good. Keep your head up. We all face tough days." She glanced around, feeling slightly self-conscious, then finished her lunch before returning to the clinic floor. Little did she know that, a few blocks away, Andrew was also grappling with corporate tensions that would soon spill over into her life. That afternoon, Andrew escorted a prospective investor named Mrs. Townsend through the sleek corridors of Langford Investments. She was an influential figure known for hosting elite fundraisers in the city. Tall and poised, with silver-streaked hair, she moved briskly, heels clicking on polished floors as Andrew offered her a curated tour. At the end of their meeting, they settled in a glass-walled conference room for final negotiations on a sizable capital injection into one of Andrew's new tech ventures. "I'm pleased to hear about the potential synergy," Andrew said politely, scribbling some notes. "Our data analytics firm stands to benefit greatly from your group's involvement." Mrs. Townsend nodded, peering over her designer glasses. "Indeed, Andrew. I can see you've inherited your father's ambition." She eyed him keenly. "He and I have spoken about your recent philanthropic choices. Surprising, but I suppose it's your prerogative as CEO." Andrew suppressed a frown. Clearly, Peter Langford had been talking about Andrew's donation to the small clinic. "It's a project I'm passionate about," he said evenly. "Helping underprivileged communities is part of our broader philanthropic plan." Mrs. Townsend smiled, though it didn't reach her eyes. "Of course. However, one can't help but wonder if there's a personal element. Some rumor circulates about a nurse, a girl from a modest background who's captured your attention." Andrew's posture stiffened. He willed himself to remain courteous. "I wasn't aware my personal life was a topic for business gossip," he responded, carefully measured. She shrugged delicately. "When you're a Langford, every step is noted. I'm only offering friendly advice. The circles you move in have certain expectations. If you align yourself too closely with someone outside them, well, it can complicate your professional relationships." A flash of anger sparked in Andrew's chest. He forced a placid smile. I appreciate the concern, Mrs. Townsend, but I keep my business and personal affairs separate. Should we finalize the investment paperwork now? Mrs. Townsend's stare lingered a moment longer. Then she resumed talking business, leafing through the contract. Yet Andrew's mind remained uneasy. He finished the deal, shook her hand, and bid her goodbye. Afterward, in the privacy of his office, he allowed himself a scowl. Rumors, indeed. He hated that people felt entitled to pry and pass judgment on whom he spent time with. Mia deserved better than to become a subject of idle chatter. He pulled out his phone, scanning messages from the day. Clara, the philanthropic coordinator, had sent him updates on the clinic's equipment orders. A small, flickering sense of peace returned as he imagined the new machines arriving to help patients. Alongside that peace, though, was a growing resolve. If certain social circles tried to shame him for caring about someone beyond their privileged sphere, he'd have to be ready to fight back, or distance himself from them entirely. 2 days later, Mia finished her shift just as twilight began to settle. She had promised to drop by a nearby pharmacy for her mother's medication refill. Emerging from the clinic, she noticed an unfamiliar black sedan parked across the street. A man in a suit leaned against it, arms folded, watching her. Mia paused, her pulse jumping with caution. The man approached at a casual pace, raising a hand. "Good evening, Miss Mia, is it?" He spoke with a polished but impersonal tone. "I work with Mr. Peter Langford. I believe you know his son, Andrew." Alarm bells rang in her head. "Yes, I do. Can I help you?" He offered a business card with a stern expression. "I'm Mr. Reynolds, an associate of Peter Langford. He asked me to have a word with you off the record. May we speak privately?" Mia's apprehension spiked, yet she glanced around. The clinic was nearly empty, and Lucy had already left. She didn't want to invite a stranger inside. "I only have a few minutes," she said stiffly, stepping back. "Say what you must." Mr. Reynolds cleared his throat, giving a tight smile. "Mr. Langford respects your actions saving Andrew, but he's concerned that Andrew's recent involvement with you might spark unhelpful gossip and complications, both for Andrew and for you." She stiffened. "I'm not sure what you're implying. Andrew and I are just—" "I understand," he interrupted smoothly. "Let me be clear. Peter Langford wishes you well. He's prepared to offer substantial support if you prefer to continue your life without further contact with Andrew." The man handed over a sealed envelope. "Inside is a check, an expression of gratitude ensuring you won't face financial hardship. In return, we hope you'll recognize that maintaining distance is best for everyone." Mia's breath caught as she stared at the envelope. "You're asking me to cut ties with Andrew in exchange for money?" Reynolds's gaze remained impassive. "We're merely offering compensation for any difficulties you might face. Mr. Langford wants to avoid a media storm or any undue stress on you. He knows these cross-society relationships can be painful." Mia felt outrage surge. She recalled the countless struggles she and her mother had endured. Money was always tight, yet the idea of being paid off to vanish from Andrew's life ignited a hot anger. She thrust the envelope back at Reynolds. "Tell Mr. Langford I don't need his hush money, and I won't make decisions about Andrew based on a bribe." Mr. Reynolds exhaled, his mask of politeness slipping a fraction. "I advise you to think carefully. The Langford's reach is extensive. If you continue to interact with Andrew, the public may hound you, reporters may harass your family. This can become very unpleasant." "Then that's my problem," Mia snapped, heart pounding. "Not yours, and not your boss's." Without another word, she spun on her heel, marching away toward the pharmacy. The envelope remained in Reynolds's hand. He watched her go, shaking his head as he returned to the sedan. Mia's steps felt shaky. She fought tears that threatened to spill. The gall of Andrew's father, his presumption that she could be bought off. Had Andrew known about this? She doubted it. He didn't seem like the type to orchestrate such an offense, but it still hurt. She imagined the humiliations that might await if the media or society discovered their budding friendship. Perhaps Peter Langford was right about one thing. It could become very unpleasant. Her jaw clenched. She'd saved Andrew's life out of compassion, never dreaming it would spiral into corporate intrigue or attempts to pay her off. Pushing aside her turmoil, she purchased her mother's medication and hurried home, her mind in a storm of worry and hurt. That evening, Andrew noticed that Mia hadn't responded to his last text, a casual message about how the clinic's new lab equipment would arrive sooner than expected. It was unusual for her to remain silent. He tried calling, but it went straight to voicemail. Concern gnawed at him. Did something happen at the clinic? Was her mother okay? At the same time, Andrew received an update from his father's personal assistant. Mr. Langford regrets to inform you he's traveling abroad for a brief business trip. No mention of Mia, no direct confrontation. Andrew found it suspicious. His father seldom left town without a heavily publicized schedule. Growing restlessness led Andrew to pace his living room. He considered driving to the clinic or Mia's apartment, but it was late. He resolved to try calling again in the morning. Meanwhile, a nagging sense told him his father might already be taking steps to handle the situation with Mia. The next day, Mia woke with a headache, the previous evening's encounter replaying in her head. Part of her wanted to text Andrew, to warn him about his father's associate, but a swirl of conflicting emotions held her back. She still felt furious, embarrassed, and terrified that Andrew might side with his father, or that he might dismiss her concerns as overblown. At the clinic, Lucy immediately sensed her troubled state. "Mia, you look like you've been crying. What happened?" Mia's voice came out brittle. "Someone from Andrew's family approached me last night. They tried to pay me off to stay away from him." Lucy's eyes widened in horror. "What? Are you kidding me?" Mia shook her head, tears prickling. "They just assumed I'd take the money and disappear. So I said no, but Lucy, it's humiliating. This is exactly what I was afraid of. His world sees me as nothing but a nuisance or a threat." Lucy's features hardened. "That's awful. But does Andrew know? He should be told." Mia swallowed a surge of emotion. "I'm not even sure how to begin that conversation. If I tell him, it might start a feud between him and his father. Or maybe he already knows." She exhaled shakily. I need time to think." Lucy wrapped her in a protective hug. "Take the time you need, but don't assume Andrew's complicit. From everything I've seen, that man really cares about you." Despite Lucy's comforting words, Mia spent the day in a fog of apprehension. Twice she felt her phone vibrate, likely Andrew checking in, but she ignored it, not ready to talk. She needed to gather her thoughts first. Andrew, meanwhile, was beside himself with worry. Mia's continued silence seemed ominous. Late that afternoon, he made a decision. He would go to the clinic in person. If she was still at work, he could discreetly ask if something was wrong. If not, at least Lucy or Dr. Haas might know she was all right. He arrived near closing time, stepping through the familiar doors to see Lucy at the reception desk. She stiffened when she spotted him, then forced a polite smile. "Andrew, didn't expect you today." He lowered his voice. "Lucy, is Mia around? She hasn't returned my calls or texts. I'm worried something might have happened." Lucy gave him a searching look, her voice subdued. "She left early. She wasn't feeling well." Andrew felt a pang of guilt. "Any idea why?" She hesitated, then spoke carefully. "Look, Andrew, I'm not sure I should be the one to tell you, but Mia's upset. Someone from your father's circle cornered her last night trying to—" Lucy paused, lowering her voice further. "They offered her money to break things off with you." Andrew's face went pale, then darkened with anger. He clenched his fists. "I had no idea," he said through gritted teeth. "I suspected my father might meddle, but this is outrageous." A wave of shame washed over him. "Mia must be horrified." Lucy nodded. She's hurt, Andrew. Scared, too. You need to talk to her, but be gentle. Andrew stared at the ground, heart pounding. I will. Thank you, Lucy. Leaving the clinic, he rang his driver, but then realized he wanted to clear his head first. He strode down the sidewalk, contemplating how best to fix this situation. He needed to apologize to Mia, assure her he had no part in that vile bribe, and stand firm against his father's interference. The question was, how deep would the consequences go if Andrew openly defied Peter Langford? And more importantly, would Mia trust him enough to stay by his side as the storm inevitably escalated? Thus began a tumultuous new chapter, one where Andrew grappled with confronting his father's manipulations and proving to Mia that his affection was real, not overshadowed by wealth and power. Meanwhile, Mia stood at a crossroads, uncertain whether to endure the scrutiny and disrespect of Andrew's world or to protect herself by stepping away from a man she was growing to care about. Their fragile bond now faced its biggest test. Could gratitude and growing love withstand the might of social prejudices and family power plays, or would Andrew and Mia crumble under the weight of forces determined to keep them apart? O1 Pro. Você disse yes. O ChatGPT disse solicitação de O1 Pro Mod. Terminou de refletir, Section 910. The tension that had quietly shadowed Andrew and Mia's relationship finally erupted into full view, forcing each of them to confront hard choices. For Mia, the previous day's encounter with Peter Langford's associate felt like a violation, one that laid bare just how powerful and intrusive Andrew's world could be. For Andrew, discovering that his father had attempted to bribe Mia was the final straw that made him realize how far Peter was willing to go to preserve the family's social standing. That evening, Andrew received a curt summons to the Langford estate, a stately mansion on the outskirts of the city where his father maintained a private office. Though he knew the meeting would be fraught, Andrew went, determined to defend Mia against his father's manipulations. The Langford estate radiated quiet luxury, tall hedges, a winding driveway, and a polished marble entrance. Andrew hadn't visited in weeks, partly to avoid run-ins with his father. But now, the situation demanded confrontation. He walked inside, passing silent staff members who offered respectful bows. His footsteps echoed along the corridors until he reached the office doors. Inside, Peter Langford sat behind a massive mahogany desk surrounded by portraits of Langford ancestors. He looked up from a sheaf of documents, his gaze sharp. "Andrew," he said in a clipped tone, "I trust you know why I wanted this meeting." Andrew closed the door, planting himself in front of his father's desk. "Yes," he replied tersely, "I'm here because you sent someone to harass Mia. Offer her hush money." Peter's jaw tightened, but he maintained a patrician calm. "Harass is a strong word. I merely asked Reynolds to ensure the girl understood how difficult a relationship with you would be, for everyone. A financial gesture seemed the most practical solution." Andrew exhaled, struggling to rein in his anger. "She's not some girl, and you had no right. You talk about difficulty for everyone, but the only difficulty I see is your obsession with public image." Peter leaned back in his chair, steepling his fingers. "You think it's just about image? Our family name and assets stretch back generations. They rely on strategic alliances. You know how quickly the press would sensationalize a story about the wealthy heir and a poor nurse, painting her as a gold digger or you as a naive philanthropist. It tarnishes us both." Andrew's temper flared. "Mia saved my life. She never asked for a cent. She's the most genuine person I've met. And you tried to buy her off like she was, like some inconvenience." Peter's face remained cool. "If she truly cares for you, she should understand that her presence invites scandal. I did what had to be done. Better a small payment than a public fiasco." Andrew shook his head. "You talk about fiasco, but you're the one creating it. Mia wants nothing from us. She refused your check. Don't you see how insulting this is? To her and to me?" His father's voice rose, a rare show of emotion. "And what do you plan, Andrew? Marry her? Parade her in front of society? Make her endure ridicule and gossip she's unprepared for? You think love alone can shield you both from that storm?" Andrew's retort stuck in his throat. He and Mia hadn't even discussed something as monumental as marriage, but the idea of a future, any future, had hovered in his mind. Could it survive the trials of high society's disdain? "I don't know where this will lead," Andrew said, quieter now. "But I know I can't betray what feels right because you fear appearances. If the board or our so-called allies dislike my choices, that's their problem. We have enough standing to weather it." Peter rose to his feet, eyes cold with anger. "Your idealism is naive. We've spent decades building relationships with influential families, forging ties that keep our empire secure. You'd throw it away for someone with no connections, no pedigree?" "Yes, if it comes to that," Andrew answered firmly, his hands clenched at his sides. "I won't let you dictate my personal life, and I won't let you treat Mia like a commodity to be dismissed." For a moment, father and son locked gazes, the air charged with hostility. Finally, Peter sank back into his chair, a sneer of resignation on his lips. "Fine. Do as you wish, but don't expect my support or protection when the wolves circle. You're on your own." Andrew's heart thudded heavily. He saw the finality in his father's stance. Something fragile had broken between them. Without another word, Andrew turned and walked out, the echo of his footsteps chasing him down the corridor. As he left the estate, he felt both free and painfully alone, knowing he was severing ties with the only family he had ever known. Meanwhile, Mia sat on a small bench in her neighborhood's riverside park, trying to clear her head. The afternoon sun shimmered on the water, children's laughter and passing joggers blending into the background. She'd called in a favor at the clinic to leave early, needing time to think. The envelope that Peter Langford's associate had tried to give her still weighed on her mind, even though she'd refused it. She wanted to believe Andrew had no part in that insult, yet doubts crept in. Could she ever fully trust that his father wouldn't lash out again? A buzzing from her phone interrupted her thoughts. Andrew. She hesitated, then tapped to answer, her heart pounding. "Mia? Thank you for picking up. I've been trying to reach you." She swallowed. "Andrew, I needed some space." "I understand," he said quietly. "I only just found out what my father did. I'm so sorry. I had no idea he sent Reynolds to you. Please believe me." His voice carried genuine regret. Mia closed her eyes, feeling a sting of tears. "I believe you, but it was humiliating. I've never been treated like that." "Mia, I confronted him, told him to back off," Andrew continued. "He and I had a serious falling out. I can't promise he won't keep meddling, but I won't stand for it. You don't deserve this." Her tears spilled over at the raw emotion in his voice. "Andrew, this is exactly what I feared. I don't want you at odds with your family because of me." He took a breath. "I'm not at odds because of you. I'm at odds because my father can't accept that I'm capable of choosing my own path. That includes my friendships. And yes, my relationships. I won't lose you just to appease him." A wave of tangled relief and pain washed through her. "I don't know if I'm strong enough for what this might bring. If people start whispering, if journalists show up at my door, I'll protect you, Mia, I swear," Andrew said fervently. "I can't control the tabloids, but I can do everything in my power to keep them from harassing you. If the worst comes, we'll face it together." The word "together" made her chest ache with the hope she'd been repressing. She gazed at the river's flow, uncertain, yet drawn to him. "Andrew, I'm scared." "I am too," he admitted softly. "But if we give in to fear, we'll never know what we could have." She pressed her free hand against her forehead, tears drying in the warm breeze. After a moment, she gathered courage. "Where are you now?" "In my car, not far from my father's estate. I can meet you anywhere, anytime. or I can give you more space, whatever you need." She glanced around the park. It was quiet, a pocket of calm in her hectic life. "I'm near the river park. Can you come?" "I'll be there in 20 minutes, he promised. They ended the call, and Mia drew a shaky breath, imagining the conversation that lay ahead. She recognized they couldn't solve every problem in one afternoon, but if they were to keep moving forward, they had to be truthful about their fears and hopes, and brace for the possibility that Peter Langford would escalate his tactics. Andrew's driver navigated the city streets at a brisk pace, the late-day sun slanting across skyscrapers. Andrew tapped his foot anxiously. He knew he was risking a permanent rift with Peter, and likely with certain members of the Langford board. But Mia was worth it. She represented a life untouched by the artifice and relentless ambition he'd been steeped in since childhood. When they arrived at the park entrance, Andrew asked his driver to wait discreetly, then walked along the riverside path until he spotted Mia. She sat on a bench under a willow tree, the soft light catching strands of her hair. An unsteady wave of affection coursed through him at the sight of her. Approaching quietly, he murmured, "Mia." She turned, eyes reflecting a kaleidoscope of emotions: relief, apprehension, tenderness. Wordlessly, he sat beside her, leaving a slight gap until she indicated it was okay to move closer. She spoke first. "Thank you for coming." He nodded. "Thank you for letting me." For a few moments neither spoke, just watching the gentle waves of the river roll by. Children played in the distance, adding a faint echo of laughter to the air. Finally, Andrew cleared his throat. "I've severed ties with my father over this. Maybe temporarily, maybe permanently. I'm not sure yet. But I told him I won't let him bully you or me." Her eyes flickered with concern. "I never wanted to cause a family break." He shook his head. "It's not just about you, Mia. My father's control has overshadowed my life for years. This situation only revealed how deep his manipulations go. I had to stand up for myself, and for what I care about." Mia hesitated, then covered his hand with hers. "I'm not entirely sure what comes next. We barely know each other outside of all this drama, but I do know I don't want to end things because of your father's threats." Andrew's fingers curled gently around hers. "We can figure it out, step by step. If you need me to slow down to be discreet, I will." She leaned into him slightly, her voice tremulous yet resolute. "I don't want to hide, but I'm scared of the media, of your circle's judgment. My mother has her own health struggles. I don't want any stress on her." Andrew nodded. "We'll be careful. We don't need to broadcast anything. We'll keep living our lives. If people pry, we deal with it as it comes. For now, maybe we can just spend time getting to know each other without all the noise." Mia exhaled, a tear slipping down her cheek. This time, it was a tear of cautious relief. She let her head rest lightly on his shoulder, feeling the comforting strength of him beside her. "That's all I ask," she whispered. "Time to see if this is real." He tilted his head, pressing a tender kiss to her hair. "It feels real to me," he said softly. And in that moment, the swirl of fear and heartbreak receded, giving way to a fragile sense of peace. They lingered by the river as dusk fell, talking quietly about what made them laugh as kids, about favorite books, silly anecdotes from Mia's shifts at the clinic or Andrew's mishaps in board meetings. Now and then she worried someone might be watching or snapping pictures, but no cameras emerged from the trees. It was just them, forging a rare bubble of intimacy amid the city's bustle. When night's shadows lengthened, Andrew offered to drive Mia home again. She accepted, though she insisted on stopping at a small grocery to pick up items for her mother's dinner. Andrew accompanied her inside, no bodyguards in sight, just a man carrying her basket when it got too heavy. The store clerk hardly recognized him, and Mia found surprising delight in that ordinary moment, standing beside the wealthy CEO as he helped her choose fresh produce, both of them smiling as if they shared a secret. Finally, at her apartment door, they said a quiet goodbye. No grand gestures, no sweeping declarations, just a lingering look of mutual understanding and a promise to talk soon. That night, Mia set the table for her mother, recounting how she'd run into Andrew at the park. She didn't reveal all the turmoil with Peter Langford, not wanting to worry her mother. Still, her mother picked up on the undertones in Mia's voice. "Be careful, Mia," her mother said gently. "It's good he stands up for you, but powerful families can be relentless." Mia nodded. "We'll handle it, Mom. Together." Meanwhile, Andrew returned to his penthouse, determined to face the next day's inevitable backlash from Peter's sphere. He felt a weary sense of liberation. For the first time, he wasn't tiptoeing around the Langford image. He was choosing something, someone, for reasons that felt honest and true. Yet both Mia and Andrew knew the hardest trials were still looming. The social prejudices Andrew had lived with since birth were not easily shaken, and Peter Langford's reach extended further than either of them might guess. The question was whether their fragile hope, strengthened by mutual respect and genuine care, could endure the coming storm, or if the weight of disapproval, intrigue, and relentless scrutiny would force them apart once more. O1 Pro. Você disse yes ou ChatGPT disse solicitação de O1 Pro Mode terminou de refletir. Section 10. Despite their resolve to face difficulties together, the challenges for Mia and Andrew mounted in the days that followed. Peter Langford, angered by Andrew's open defiance, began quietly rallying allies within the upper echelons of business and society. Subtly but effectively, he spread word that Andrew's judgment might be compromised by a personal entanglement with a woman of much lower social standing. Whispers circulated through exclusive clubs and private gatherings, fueling speculation that Mia was a threat to the Langford empire. At first, Andrew did not fully realize how far his father was willing to go. He busied himself with ensuring Mia's clinic donation remained on track, finalizing the equipment deliveries and making discreet arrangements to shield Mia from any potential media intrusion. Whenever they could, he and Mia spent quiet moments together, strolling at dusk near the waterfront, sharing dinners at small, out-of-the-way cafes, and talking about everything but the gossip swirling around them. Yet the hush was broken one crisp morning when Andrew received a call from Clara, his philanthropic coordinator. She spoke in a rushed, worried tone. "Andrew, there's a crisis at the clinic. Some negative press piece dropped about the donation, accusations that the money is a bribe for personal favors." Andrew's blood turned cold. "A bribe? Who's making these accusations?" "An anonymous source," Clara answered. "They claim you only funded the clinic because of your involvement with Mia, implying it's less about genuine charity and more about a secret payoff to maintain a relationship. The local tabloids are picking it up. It's messy." Andrew nearly broke the pen in his hand. He recognized his father's hand in this, if not directly, then through one of his father's cronies. "Stay calm. Get me the details, and I'll prepare a statement," he said through gritted teeth. "I'll head to the clinic right away." Hanging up, Andrew's mind raced. Such slander could damage the clinic's reputation. Patients might grow suspicious, or donors might shy away. Worse, Mia would feel betrayed again. Seizing his jacket, he stormed from his office, ignoring concerned stares from staff. At the clinic, Mia was already fielding uneasy questions from Dr. Haas and a couple of local reporters who had shown up unannounced. The air crackled with tension as Dr. Haas tried to maintain composure, politely dismissing the journalists. Mia's heart pounded in her chest, a slow burn of anger flaring every time a reporter asked if she had profited personally from Andrew's donation. "I've never taken a cent for myself," she insisted, voice trembling with indignation. "That money is for the clinic, new lab equipment, essential meds. You can talk to Dr. Haas about the exact records." Behind Mia, Lucy hovered protectively, occasionally snapping at pushy reporters to back off. The entire waiting room was thrown into chaos, some patients anxiously asking if the clinic was under investigation. Mia's cheeks burned at the indignity of having her integrity questioned so publicly. Moments later, the clinic doors swung open, and Andrew arrived, flanked by Clara and a couple of associates. Without hesitation, he placed himself between Mia and the reporters, calmly directing them outside. "Anyone who wants an official statement can gather across the street," he declared. "But please respect patient privacy in this facility." Dr. Haas gave him a grateful nod, then tried to shepherd the staff away from the commotion. Mia exhaled sharply, relief and worry swirling in equal measure. "Are you all right?" Andrew asked, taking her hands in his, oblivious to the stares of staff and onlookers. She swallowed, eyes still bright with anger. "I will be," she said. "But this is exactly what we feared. They're twisting the story." Andrew's jaw tightened. "I'm so sorry. This has my father's fingerprints all over it, even if indirectly. Let me handle the reporters. Set the record straight." Her grip tightened around his fingers. "We can't keep letting them walk all over us, Andrew, but I don't want the clinic harmed either." He nodded. "Trust me, I've prepared a statement. I'll do everything I can to protect you and the clinic from these lies." Turning to Clara, he nodded, and she led him toward the small crowd of reporters waiting outside. Mia watched from the reception desk, Lucy at her side. Through the glass doors, she saw Andrew begin speaking calmly, defending the legitimacy of the clinic's donation, explaining that every cent was accounted for, referencing documents Dr. Haas had shared. He made no secret of his personal gratitude toward Mia, but emphasized that the clinic's funding was structured, audited, and aimed solely at patient care. Though the reporters lobbed questions about romantic entanglement, Andrew refused to be ruffled. His poise seemed to impress even the more hostile journalists. "Yes, I do care about Mia personally," he said clearly, voice carrying inside. "That has no bearing on the integrity of this donation. If you want evidence, examine the public records. Ask the clinic staff. We have nothing to hide." Inside the clinic, Mia's heart pounded at his bold admission. Lucy gave her a gentle nudge. "He's basically telling the world he's serious about you. You okay?" Mia inhaled shakily. "It's terrifying, but it's also kind of a relief." Lucy nodded, her voice soft. "That's what real support looks like." Over the next few hours, Andrew and Mia endured a barrage of media calls, online rumors, and snarky social media commentary. Yet, ironically, the transparency of the clinic's accounts and the directness of Andrew's statement began to diffuse the scandal. Skeptical reporters found no evidence of wrongdoing, only a track record of supplies and medical equipment being purchased exactly as promised. Dr. Haas held a brief press conference in the clinic's waiting area, verifying that no money had gone to Mia personally, praising Andrew for his philanthropic efforts, and urging the press to focus on the patients who benefit rather than sensationalizing good deeds. By evening, the storm was not gone, but it had quieted. Mia sank into a chair in Dr. Haas's office, rubbing her temples. Andrew stood across from her, leaning on the desk, exhaustion etched on his face. Lucy walked in, offering bottled water to both. "I think we dodged the worst," she announced, relief softening her usual banter. "Dr. Haas says the story's turning in our favor. Journalists realize there's no scandal here." Mia nodded, a faint, tired smile curving her lips. "Still, it was an awful day. I hate that the patients had to see all that." Andrew exhaled, pushing a hand through his hair. "So do I. But we had to face it eventually. Once rumors started, only honesty would clear the air." Eyes downcast, Mia murmured, "Your father must be furious. He'll see this as public defiance." Andrew's expression grew resolute. "He already did, but let him be furious. This is our life, not his." Silence filled the small office, punctuated only by the hum of the overhead lights. Mia rose slowly, crossing to where Andrew stood. She placed a hand on his shoulder, feeling tension thrumming beneath his suit jacket. "Thank you," she said softly, "for standing up for me, for the clinic, for us." He covered her hand with his own. "Always, Mia. I meant what I said. We faced trouble together. Today proved we can handle it." A blend of relief and lingering worry flooded her. She thought of her mother, who might see snippets of the day's coverage. She pictured how Andrew had squared his shoulders before the cameras, openly admitting he cared for her. That, more than any donation or protective measure, proved his sincerity. She slipped her arms around him in a brief, tender embrace. Lucy, sensing the moment, quietly ducked out of the office. The door clicked shut. Andrew pressed his forehead gently against Mia's. "I know the road won't be easy," he murmured, "but you make it worth it." Tears pricked at Mia's eyes. "You do too," she whispered. "I've never had anyone defend me like that." They drew strength from one another, letting the day's turmoil melt away in the hush. All at once, the difference in their worlds felt surmountable, given the intensity of what they were building. A companionship forged by crisis, nurtured by mutual respect and blossoming affection. Over the weeks that followed, the media's interest waned. The donated equipment began arriving at the clinic, ushering in better care for the patients. Mia and Andrew seized every spare moment to strengthen their bond away from prying eyes. A few more tabloids attempted sensational angles, but Andrew's unwavering stance and the clinic's open accounting left no room for scandal. Inevitably, Peter Langford tried new tactics: quiet threats to business partners, frosty dismissals of Andrew's proposals. Yet Andrew, with the support of some board allies who valued results more than old prejudices, managed to hold on to his position as CEO. Little by little, the older man's power plays lost momentum. He grew resentful, but with Andrew's financial independence and the board's growing trust in Andrew's leadership, there was little he could do without jeopardizing the entire Langford empire. Mia, for her part, discovered a quiet resilience she hadn't known she possessed. She stood firm when sporadic gossip flared, refusing to hide or feel ashamed of her life. She continued to work diligently at the clinic, no longer as the sole caretaker of her mother, or the nurse who'd saved a millionaire, but as a professional recognized for her skill and compassion. Patients appreciated her more than ever, seeing how she had navigated the stressful glare of public attention. And in Andrew she found a partner who understood the meaning of sacrifice, not merely in grand gestures, but in the mundane, day-to-day ways he shielded her from corporate backlash, or made time to sit with her mother over a simple home-cooked meal. Their worlds had not fused seamlessly, but they overlapped in ways that felt genuine. Shared dinners with the clinic staff, philanthropic visits to other underserved neighborhoods, quiet evenings where Andrew listened to Mia talk about her rural childhood while he recounted stories of traveling overseas on corporate errands. Yes, they still faced occasional friction, sometimes from Andrew's father, sometimes from corners of society that refused to accept their union, sometimes from Mia's own insecurities about entering a realm of affluence so far from her origins. Yet each test only confirmed what they had come to realize. The bond forged through adversity was strong, rooted in empathy and mutual respect. Mia stayed conscious of how far she had come, from nearly losing her job due to lack of funding at the clinic, to now helping shape a better future for the patients she loved. Andrew, too, changed in intangible ways. He began looking past corporate deals and high society events for meaningful ways to channel his resources, acknowledging the truth Mia had shown him, that real worth lay in impacting lives directly. He grew bolder in challenging his father, determined to steer the Langford name toward genuine, compassionate ventures. In time, the city saw them as more than a poor girl and a rich man. When the tabloids lost interest, others replaced gossip with genuine curiosity, realizing Mia was an accomplished nurse and Andrew was an innovative philanthropist who backed up his words with action. Local organizations started to invite them to speak about bridging gaps in healthcare. Students from nursing schools sent Mia letters thanking her for inspiring them to believe that one caring act could spark unimaginable change. So, as the months drifted by, Andrew and Mia's story evolved from sensational rumor to a quiet testament that love, or even the possibility of love, could thrive despite social prejudices, family expectations, and the glare of public opinion. They still took each step cautiously, building trust day by day, forging a future that might hold marriage, or might simply hold a steady partnership unbound by labels. To outside observers, it might have seemed miraculous, a nurse from a struggling clinic and a millionaire CEO walking side by side, each believing in the other's worth. But for Andrew and Mia, it was simply the natural outcome of two souls meeting at a moment of crisis, discovering kindness in each other and refusing to let fear or power tear them apart. If you enjoyed this story, don't miss the next one. Just click on the screen